Well, good morning, and a pleasant good Monday morning. I know each and every one of you has to be a little bit tired this morning, and that's certainly understandable. Tough getting up and going. Tough getting up and going. After everything that happened last night, we welcome you to Dialed In. I'm Tom Brenneman, joined by Luke Brenneman. Luke, good morning from Bloomington, Indiana.
Good morning. Good morning. I hope you guys are doing as poor as me right now after last night, but it is a good morning. We're up and we're at 'em.
Absolutely. Thankful for that. Casey McCollister, our producer and contributor to the program. I know that you're a little down and out this morning. Correct or incorrect?
I think that's a bit of an understatement, to be honest with you. I'm starting to feel sorry for myself again for being a Bengals fan. That's just not a good place to be at, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah. But hey, look, I don't think you're by yourself in that regard. And we'll get into that in a little bit. We'd like to thank our outstanding sponsors, UDF and Encore Technologies. As you know, we come your way twice a week live here on Monday mornings. We're the first people in town to talk about what happened the day before, or in this case, the night before, with anything Cincinnati or national sports related. We post later in the day on the Believe Network, and then we come your way Thursday at noon Eastern Time. I was hoping Luke would be back from Thanksgiving break where we could do it live together in the studio, but I know you have an exam later in the day, so you won't be back till Thursday night. You can find us on YouTube, the Chatterbox Sports page. You can download us anywhere. Just search Dialed In with Tom Brenneman, and you're dialed in. Look, this was not a surprise. Now, the way it happens time after time may come as a surprise, but the outcome is something we have seen far too many times over and over and over again. A simply spectacular quarterback trying to hide the warts all around it. A defense, yeah, can play well in spurts, but by and large has been a disaster. A kicking game that once was money, but now it's nothing more than a crashing currency. We've seen it coming all year long. A team that lacked urgency and preparedness, not only at the start of a game like we once again saw last night, but also the start of the season. A team that struggles mightily in the red zone. They were great in the second half, but missed huge chances in the first half. 2 field goals, inconsistency, and it's a franchise truly not committed to winning. We know that. The Bengals rallied, incredible second half after maybe the worst first half they've played in 5 years. They tease us, yet again they fall short 34-27 to the Chargers, a loss that surely ends all of our silly thoughts, and that's what they were, and we knew it. But we're fans, and we kid ourselves about a potential playoff run for this team. So what's next? We'll talk about last night and talk about that. Look, other teams have warts too, but they do what they have to do to win. I mean, do the Steelers look like a perfect team to you? I mean, they completely shut down Lamar Jackson last night. Jackson could have done whatever he wanted against the Bengals 10 days ago. And I mean, he looked like a totally different cat last night. And with the win, that puts the men of aluminum in the AFC North driver's seat. Who would have thunk it? Buffalo, another team in the past that has found ways to lose big games. They get a big one last night, knocking off previously unbeaten Kansas City 30-21. College football, which we'll get into a little bit today as well. UC loses another tight one to Iowa State. Georgia dismantles Tennessee. Tennessee was a fraud from the beginning. We said that here on the program. And they get boat raced in Knoxville. That's no shocker. BYU loses for the first time. And now all of a sudden, Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes are in a prime time spot to try and reach a college football playoff. The talk has already started about this week's showdown in Columbus. Number 2 Ohio State hosts unbeaten and 5th-ranked Indiana. That'll be a noon kickoff, and Luke Brenneman, you will be there.
I will. I think that is arguably turned into the game of the year because of the playoff implications. I know we saw Ohio State, Oregon, which is still, if they played again, would be the matchup of the year. But this one between Indiana and Ohio State, I know it's a noon game. People are upset about that not happening at night, but that's going to have one of those feels of it's win and you're in regards to the Big Ten championship game. I mean, Ohio State does have to play Michigan. Indiana has an even easier matchup against Purdue in that rivalry week. But with the way this whole playoff worked out, there's so much more going on inside of that game that everyone is going to have to keep their eyes on this week. I cannot wait. I mean, to have the experience that I'm going to get to be able to work that game as a student and be there on the field at the Horseshoe with this football team that I signed up to work for, who went 3-9 last season and brought in, some guy from James Madison. Well, next thing you know, we're the 5th-ranked team in the country going into Ohio State undefeated, and he is signing a check for $72 million over the next 8 years. So everything
really
is
is
changing
amazing.
fast here. But I couldn't be more grateful, but I think we got a lot of Bengals stuff to dive into this morning.
All right, let's get right into it. Look, you watched that first half yesterday, and Luke, you and I and Casey were texting with each other, and just to be a Bengals fan, that first half was humiliating. I want to start with that before we get to what happened later, because in a game against San Diego, I keep calling him San Diego. Forgive me. In a game against the Chargers, and the way that team is built. Chris Collinsworth said it. You're lucky if you get 11 possessions in the game. You're lucky if you do. And in that first half, once they go 5 plays and punt, once they go 3 plays and punt, but the other 2 times they go down the field, and once again they get in the red zone. Now look, this is a combination of reasons why this has happened. Okay, it's poor execution by the players. It's poor play calling. But in a game like that, and we have talked about this, and people take it as though you're picking on Joe Burrow. I'm not picking on Joe Burrow, okay? And people can say, well, their red zone stats were the top 3, top 4. We have watched it. The numbers can tell you anything you want. We have watched it this year, where one time in most games, sometimes twice, one time last night, they get a touchdown instead of kick a field goal, and it's an entirely different game. Casey, I'll start with you. I just don't know how in the world you can come into a game last night and you had players openly saying, Hendrickson was saying it, Burrow was saying it, Chase was saying it, people saying this isn't a normal game. We've got to win this game to have a chance at the postseason. And I mean, they could not have laid collectively, offense, defense, special teams, a bigger egg than they did in the first 30 minutes of that game last night. How does that happen?
Poor preparation, Tom. I'm not to steal words from Reed Mouse, but usually when you win a close game, it's because of the players. When you lose a close game, it's probably because of coaching. And wouldn't you know it, they came out flat, came out unprepared for that game, and created too much of a deficit to come back from. It was a poor performance from the defense. They finally got a fire lit under their ass after the first half, but it shouldn't get to that point. Like, they should already be in that mentality, in that mode, because this is the game they have to win. They have to win this game to have a chance to make it to the playoffs. And now it's pretty insignificant, but it's all, in my opinion, the unpreparedness of the coaching staff and the unwillingness to make adjustments, make the tough calls. I mean, it took them 10 weeks to finally sit Cam Taylor-Britt after how poorly he's been performing. And our luck, DJ Turner gets hurt, and he has to go back in there, and then he is one of the main reasons why they score a touchdown on that final drive. So, I mean, it's just unbelievable how this coaching staff has really dragged their feet in making the critical adjustments this season, and it's cost them. And that first half, like you said, very embarrassing for this team.
And it's happened now far too many times in big games. and the start of seasons, as I just mentioned in the monologue a minute ago. Every year you come out 0-2, you come out 0-3, 1-3, and you are fighting and fighting and fighting where you cannot afford a hiccup to get your season back together. They fought back better last year than they did this year, quite honestly. They made a run at it after Burrow had gone down and Browning came in, and they gave you hope up until the second to last week of the season. Luke, I don't understand how now is the time you got to be reflective about things. The season's not over. They have a lot of games to play. Yeah, you never know what might happen. Okay, we don't know. So you got to keep fighting and showing what your character is all about. But I wonder if we're starting to see now some cracks inside that locker room. We saw Hendrickson very emotional and upset last night. We've seen Burrow's body language all of a sudden. You can tell it's just eating him alive. Now's the time where you got to start saying to yourself, what do we have to do to fix this thing, right?
Well, I think it really brings up some glaring issues like Casey mentioned, but it's scary now in Cincinnati because they have continued to find different ways to lose games outside of the fluke upsets that are the biggest issue. Week 1 against the Patriots. I mean, some of these losses are so difficult, like the first Ravens loss, like the Ravens 2 Thursday nights ago. How about last night in front of the entire country on Sunday Night Football? They're playing 2 halves of football that nobody else can keep up with. That was the first time all year in the second half, seriously, all season, when the Bengals defense was getting off the field and the Bengals offense was getting on the field, and I was confident that they were playing together and what Casey and I always refer back to as complementary football. So this is why I say I'm a little bit scared. Because if you can't win games like the ones that they have played, where in the second half you are the most dominant team offensively, you have the best quarterback in the NFL, you have the best wide receiver in the NFL, your rookie running back is touching it north of 20 times for nearly 100 yards. So you ran the ball well, you're throwing the ball the best out of any team in the entire league, and you can't win. That's not NFL football. That's stuff that SEC teams like Ole Miss and LSU have been getting away with in the college game for ages, where you play no defense and you can outscore and outplay your opponent. That is not the game that this league bases themselves around. So I don't know. That's why I say I'm scared. Do you reset? Do you burn this fire down until it's dead ash? And next thing you know, we're 2 years from now, and Joe Burrow's, nearly 30 years old, and we hope that we paid Jamar Chase $300 million. But then at that point, it's like, where do we get the money? Where are we spending the money? Is Von Bell 45 and he's still playing the Bengals safety position? Is Geno Stone still bailing out of tackles because he's probably near the end of his career? I have no idea. If one injury like DJ Turner going down after playing arguably his game of the year last night is such a big deal that we are freaking out that our best corner last year has to come back into a game that he was benched, then that makes you say we might just have to burn this whole thing down and restart while we still have Joe and Jamar here. But then yet again, you see that third quarter of a game where you win 14-3 and the defense is getting off the field. Herbert's looking a little rattled. They sacked him, and you're like, shit, this team might win the Super Bowl. So it's just so hard because they did play complimentary football last night, to good enough to win the game even after the most poor start I've seen from a Bengals team in a long time. And there's been a lot of them. And the one aspect of complimentary football that we forgot, guys, the special teams. So, yeah, I don't know. I really don't. But I do think the biggest takeaway I had was if you come out and you play that bad in the first half, that is a coaching issue. That is a character issue. That is an issue inside of the locker room in a game that had the magnitude of this one.
The second half was spectacular offensively. Although, again, I feel like I say this all the time and people take it the wrong way. This was another example, though, where you have a chance to win the game. And this was the same story in the Super Bowl run. It was the same story in the AFC Championship run the following year. as spectacular as they were, and I don't know if I've ever seen Burrow just decide and try to will his team to win a game the way he did last night. It's terrifying how often he's getting hit. It is so scary how often he's getting hit. And I mean hit hard, man. Heck, he was getting hit last night on the one play where he gets hit, and then he gets hit falling into Bosa, going down to the ground. But they had a chance, fellas. They had the ball 3 more times. The defense, up until that final drive, came up with back-to-back stops to give them a chance to win the game. And the best they could do was get to the 35-yard line. Now, look, I'm not taking McPherson off the hook, and I'm not sitting here beating down the offense. But this was another game where they had a chance to finish the game, and they didn't do it. You can say, well, McPherson missed two chip shots. Well, not chip shots. He missed 2 field goals. They were long field goals. True. But how many times has that happened this year where they've asked him to kick a 50-yarder to try and win the game? Now, is he capable of making that? Of course he is. But that's a low percentage play, even as good as he's been. The offense had the ball 3 times last night in the fourth quarter to take the lead. And, Casey, it didn't happen.
No, it didn't. And even if he makes those 2 kicks there at the end, I mean, maybe it is a different game. Maybe they drain more of the clock out. But they still go down in 4 plays in 27 seconds and score a touchdown. So it would be 33 to 34. So it doesn't – that to me just – it's not good enough. It just wasn't good enough. I'm not going to sit here and act like the offense is the main issue, but it's something that we have to talk about because they're not a perfect team. I can't stand people that are defending this offense right now when we all know what the main issue is, right? Like, it's pretty self-explanatory. The defense is just super depleted. It's just got no talent whatsoever, except for Trey. And that's the main issue, right? Well, we can hammer that same topic for weeks on end. It's not going to change. It's not going to change. The one thing that we can do is kind of, criticize the moments where they had an opportunity to put the game away and they didn't. And they've done it now time and time again. Tom, I've got a list of plays here from the offense that had opportunities to close out games this season and were not able to do it.
Yeah, and Casey, before you start those, I want to hear a couple because, Luke, I know you got to leave in about 10 minutes, and I want to get to your Power 5 here. So, Casey, save that thought, and you and I can walk through some of these plays because I got to tell you, look, people get so personal about this stuff. When you start picking on the offense, when we know the defense stinks. But we asked the question 5 weeks ago, the first Baltimore game, 6 weeks ago. We said, can they win a shootout? And the answer is still no. We know that for them to win, Collinsworth said it again last night, for the Bengals to win, they have to win shootouts because they know the hand they're dealt as far as talent or lack thereof is with this defense. And don't bring Anarumo into this thing. This is not on him. When he has good players, he's had good defenses. And at least his unit showed up in the second half until the final drive. And believe me, I'm not taking him off the hook entirely. But, I mean, are you kidding me? You think – I saw people last night in chat rooms. Mike Zimmer is going to come in here and turn the – give me a break. This defense is brutal. But people get so personal when they're saying, oh, you're beating up Burrow. They scored 27 points. I'm not beating up Burrow. He is the best quarterback in the NFL. The best. And it's not even debatable. He's better than Mahomes. He's better than Allen. He's better than all of them. And if I had one pick to start a franchise tomorrow, it would be Joe Burrow. But it does not take away from the fact that he has 10 other guys with him on any given play when they have had chances to win games or get closer than a 50-yard field goal. And somebody in the chat's going, oh, these guys ought to be able to make 50-yard field goals. Go look around at what the percentages around the league of 50-yard field goals. You're a 50-50 split at best on 50-yarders. So this team has had so many chances to win a shootout, and they never finish it. All right, let's get to our top 5. Casey, you and I can continue this conversation because, Luke, you got to get to class. Let's start with our top 5 around the NFL and our power rankings. Luke, we'll begin with you. Who you got?
I think it's a no-brainer at 1. I have the Lions and then the Bills really close second. Obviously, the Chiefs coming in third. I think that was interchangeable depending on who won that game in Buffalo. No one was going to be 1. The Lions, I know they played the Jags, but they beat up on the teams they're supposed to beat up. That offense, I seriously think they might have 1,300 plays that could pick up a first down. I think my biggest nightmare and would have me sweating all night in my sleep is imagining that offense playing the Bengals defense. And then the Eagles at 4 and the Steelers at 5. I think the biggest takeaway of this list is the latter 2 teams. The Eagles started off this season, and I'm an avid Twitter scroller. All I'm seeing is Nick Sirianni hot seat. Nick Sirianni hot seat. The Steelers, they do the same thing every single year. They get ugly wins. They beat the Ravens at home and scored 15 points. Look at that matchup that happened between Cincinnati and Baltimore. And this is the last thing I want to say about the Bengals before we officially move on, is to your point, is it Joe Burrow in the fourth quarter, or is it the fact that Cincinnati ran the ball somewhat effectively last night, guys? But in the first quarter, or the first half of that game, the Chargers were scoring touchdowns in 4 to 5 plays. It was 20 yards, 25 yards, 30 yards, and a touchdown. So to me as a play caller, that puts you in a really tough spot offensively. So I do think you got to give the offense a little grace. If it's 3rd and 2, if it's 3rd and 4, that's typically a time for an offensive coordinator to say, hey, let's maybe draw up a cheeky halfback draw play. Let's maybe run one inside and try and pick up one in the trenches. The way the Bengals defense was going in that first half, you can't risk that. You have to keep the ball in Joe Burrow's hands there and throw it and be predictable. Because if you punt the ball away, you're down 28-3. So I don't really know how that works together because I'm not a football guy. I've never played or coached, so I can't talk on it. But just from a sheer perspective, I think it does put a lot on the offense on those short yardage situations. And that's why they struggled to stay on the field on that first set of downs. And Zach Taylor talked about it at halftime. He's like, our offense is going to be fine. We just need to get the first down. And that's the one thing he was right about. Because the second they settled in, they were scoring every single drive until the final couple of plays where, the Bengals just find ways to lose games. But in regards to the power rankings, I think we can all agree Detroit's the best team in the NFL. But I really do look at Philly and Pittsburgh in comparison to the Bengals to say you don't have to play perfect football to win in this league. You don't have to play perfect football at all to be a top 7 team in this league the way it's going right now. So for the Bengals to continue to play statistically, I'm not going to say perfect, but statistically unbelievable the way they are, if you really look at the numbers, it might make you sick. And that's a team that, no, they're not 500. No, they're not 1 game under. This is a 4-win team in 11 football games. It's not the way this league works. It's not the way. And that's officially where I stand on Monday morning after this loss to the Chargers. This is not the way you win in the National Football League. As fun as it may be to watch, as hopeful as we may get at times, just look at the power rankings, and you can keep the Lions because they are the best team in the NFL, and they're dominant, but it's not the way you have to win. I mean, Buffalo and Kansas City went 16 to 18 straight minutes in that second half with both of them not scoring a point. You have to be able to consistently get stops and win in the trenches in this league and be able to punt the ball away and win field position game. And the Bengals just never do that day in and day out. But hey, they're going to make a crazy play and make a crazy comeback and fall just short.
All right. Casey, your top 5. Who you got in there?
Oh, my top 5. I think we all have the same 5 teams, just in different orders. Detroit, obviously, number 1 for me. They've just been killing teams, and they look unstoppable. That offense is just unbelievable. Hopefully they can continue to stay relatively healthy enough to when the big games do come, that they can be competitive in those. Because I saw Alex Alonso, he got hurt too now. that's something to look out for in the near future. Buffalo Bills number 2, Josh Allen. He's just phenomenal. I think that team, we were all down on them in the offseason. It just doesn't matter when you have Josh Allen. And surprisingly enough, Sean McDermott, maybe he's a pretty decent defensive coach, head coach. He's able to make guys just work. They lose some all-pro talent all over the field on defense, and they just continue to roll. Philadelphia, their front office continues to amaze me how easy it is for them to acquire and draft talent. That's just phenomenal. Kenyon Mitchell and the kid from Iowa, the safety, both those kids have been phenomenal. The defense continues to just stay at a very competitive level. And Jalen Hurts and the A.J. Brown and Saquon, those guys, phenomenal. Kansas City, they deserve to be in the top 4. It was a close game that they lost. They got outwilled, I feel like, in that game. But we'll see how they continue to play the rest of the season. And Pittsburgh, they shut down what I think is the best offense in the league so far in Lamar Jackson. And I think that deserves a lot of kudos. Despite how they looked on offense, I think that it's always tough to play. Though that game in particular, Ravens versus Steelers, is always super tough. It's never high scoring. It's always low scoring. It's a grind out fest. And they came out on top once again. They're 4-1 against Lamar in his career. I think that they are one of the best teams in the NFL.
Yeah. My top 5 does not have Kansas City in it. Look, I know they just lost for the first time yesterday, so clearly they still have the best record in the league. But I don't think they're one of the – oh, maybe I got them 5. I beg your pardon. I got them 5 just because they only have one loss. I think, you look at the way they're winning games. If there's ever a year where Kansas City better get the home field advantage, which they always do, and right now would. But if there's ever a year that they need to have home field advantage, this is that year. Detroit's the best team. Buffalo's the best team in the AFC. They proved it yesterday. Pittsburgh, I'm amazed by Pittsburgh. Man, Mike Tomlin, they've had 2 quarterbacks. They get to the playoffs with that team they had last. Are you kidding me? And the Philadelphia Eagles have been on a roll. The Eagles might be number 2 by this time next week if they win again. And then Kansas City. So, Luke, I know you got to get rolling to class. Have a good one today, and you've got to be ready for Thursday with some good Indiana stuff because we're going to be talking a lot about Ohio State v. Indiana on Thursday.
Yeah, I am. And I know you guys will touch on it later. So if you want to use the document that we use for the sake of the show, there is just this glaring highlighted section that is the pick'em standings. And that is now the 3rd straight 5-2 week out of the youngster in Bloomington. And there's a new leader in the clubhouse. Not a co-leader like last week, an outright leader. So I know we didn't get to our picks and how we did just yet. But before I sign off, I think I'm collecting the torch from you. You held it for maybe a month. But there's 45-33, 44-34, and 37-41. LBTB Casey McAllister. So I'm back. I'm back in the winner's circle, but we have a long way to go. So I had to get a little something to brag about on this dark Monday morning to be a Bengals fan.
Fair enough. You're allowed to stick your chest out. That's okay. Big boy. You'll be back in second place next week. All right. Have a good rest of your day, my man. I love you.
Thank you. Take it away, guys.
All right, Casey. I had to drop a big buoy. A lot of people in the chat like big buoy, especially Everett. He's already come back to it. Okay, let's stay in the NFL for a minute because, we were sitting there before last night talking about the Bengals and their playoff chances and all that kind of thing. Okay, so now what is next? Casey, what's next? Do you start playing some younger players to see what you have? Do you, keep on keeping on with the same guys you got? What do you do now if you're the Bengals?
That's a tough question, Tom. They're in a really bad spot because I feel like a lot of the young talent that that normally these teams have that would be able to go out there and make some possible noise. They're already out there. A lot of the defensive line has been hurt throughout the season. They've gotten a ton of snaps. We kind of know what's going on with them. They need to continue to develop. So I'm not completely out on those guys yet on the D-line. It's just they need more snaps, but they've been getting those snaps. In the secondary, those guys have been getting snaps too. Jordan Battle, he's been rotating in there with the safeties. Maybe he deserves more than a third or a half of the snaps. And Josh Newton just got hurt. We'll see what happens there. Dax Hill would be in that conversation at corner as well, but he's been out for the season. So the young talent thing, not much of it, not much there to rely on to make a difference. When I think about what the team should do moving forward, the thing that I continue to kind of go back on and look at is they have to go 6-0 to go 10-7.
Yeah.
We've seen this team, and I'm not trying to proclaim that there's still hope, because I do feel like the season's pretty much dead. But we've seen this team do crazy runs before. We've seen them make just unbelievable runs. 6 wins in a row isn't out of the question, I don't think. I think you just continue to try to win ball games. I don't think there's any sort of tanking to be had. The team is just too good to tank, and they're too bad to win. So it's just they're in this weird spot where I just don't know what the right answer is. And like I said, there's not a lot of talent to evaluate because this team has been so depleted, and it's swung and missed on so many guys. We already know the answer to a lot of these questions, but at this point.
Yeah, but Casey, but do you know the answer? I mean, when I say about throw in the towel, and we're talking about that with some guys, I mean, Cam Taylor-Britt, before the season started, we were talking about him being a shutdown corner. And I'm just using him as an example, okay? And I'll back up and preface what I'm about to say about him based on Turner. Now, everybody feels like Turner had the best game of his career last night, right? Well, we feel like we've been waiting on him, and a lot of us have been, beating him down pretty good. A lot of the fan base. They've been killing this guy almost this entire year. He goes out and plays a good game for you. He's young. He's still under control as far as money is concerned. I mean, are you going to throw in the towel on Cam Taylor-Britt as a third-year player?
Well, as a number one corner, I don't have any faith in that.
Well, I mean, number one corner, what I'm asking is, are you going to just completely throw him out and run him out of here with the idea that this time next year, he's not going to be in your starting lineup? And he has a chance to go somewhere else, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but he would go somewhere else and maybe turn into one of those players, that all of us end up saying, oh, that's the Bengals. They had the guy. Everybody in the chat, even Optimistic John, saying, get him out of here. But that's every fan base, right? When your team's not going good. I just don't know if, I don't know if you start throwing in the towels on 24-year-olds, 25-year-olds. Well, I could be wrong.
I'm not throwing in the towel. I mean, we have team control over him for at least another season, I believe. And we have players there like Josh Newton and DJ Turner, and maybe we bring back Dax Hill. We have a lot of depth there to where we don't have to ship him away. I think he's a good second string corner. I don't think he's ever going to be the best corner in the league, because I think he's got some physical limitations against certain matchups. I think he's really good against bigger bodied receivers, and we've seen that. But sometimes, man, it's a little bit chaotic when there's a guy that can really be shifty. I think he's shown a weakness in that regard. And overall this year, he's really regressed. Sometimes you just need to sit a guy and have him just kind of
Yeah.
reset. And for me, that's, I'm not giving up on Cam Taylor-Britt being a piece on this team. I just don't think he's going to be a star. Like, I just don't think that's in the cards at the moment. He can always prove me wrong throughout the season, but it's kind of too late at this point. Like, we needed it to happen like 3 or 4 weeks ago. So for me, I'm not giving up on him. There's no need to give up on him. It's just like, there's no other choice. Like, we've had too many injuries sustained on this team at this point to give him that time to reset. We should have done it a couple weeks ago, if you ask me. And now we're gonna pay the price for it. But like I said, there's just not a lot of guys on this team to evaluate moving forward. Some of these guys are going to be gone next season. Sam Hubbard, BJ Hill have expiring contracts, or guys that probably just shouldn't be on the team next year. Sam Hubbard, one of those guys. The linebacker situation, we already know what that's like. I mean, we're going to be with those two, Pratt and Wilson. They're okay. Safeties, like we know, Geno Stone.
You think Pratt and Wilson were going to be okay? Is that what you just said?
They're okay. They're okay, is what I said.
They're not even okay. They're not even all right. They're not even all right. I mean, they're not all right. But anyway, go ahead. You know what I want to get to, Casey? I want you to get to, and I don't want to cut you off, but I want to give me those handful of plays this season, because you took the time to prepare for it, about where the Bengals had a chance to finish a game and they were unable to finish a game.
Yeah, so far this season there is that five games this season where they've had the ball late in the fourth quarter or in overtime and were not able to get it done. New England, they went 3 and out when they were down 16-10, punted it with 3 minutes left after Burrow was pretty miserable all day. They had a chance to do something there, came up short. The sack fumble against Kansas City that put up that gave the Chiefs a touchdown, and they ended up going for a field goal to take the lead, putting them up 25-23 with 2 minutes and 48 seconds left on the clock. They could have scored a touchdown and would have made it a different ball game. Baltimore, they had a lead 38-28 with 9 minutes left. An interception put the Bengals in a bad spot, 38-35 with 3 minutes left. They had a 3 and out to end regulation, 3 runs for 3 yards and a missed field goal in overtime in that same game. Then at Baltimore, 2 touchdown drives, but failed the 2-point conversion. And then this week, they scored a touchdown to tie the game 27-27, missed 2 field goals, punted with 1 minute left, and the rest is history. So they've had 5 opportunities on offense to close out games, and we're not able to do so. And it's not like I'm going to sit here and put all the onus on the offense. I think that's where people get so confused or so upset when they hear us talk about the offense, because they feel like it shouldn't even be mentioned. And I'm just not in that camp anymore. I'm just not. At some point, when you have the best quarterback in the league, when you have a guy that is supposedly this clutch quarterback, and you need him to make a play, you need him to help you win a ball game, and you have this offense that is supposedly the top 5 offense in the league. They are one of the best red zone offenses in the league. I need them to play like it when it matters. When it matters, right? That's all I want. And it's like 5% of the blame, right? 5% of the blame goes on the offense. But one of these games, right? Like, at some point you're thinking like they should probably win one of these. Probably should have been New England. And I probably wouldn't sit here and talk about it today. But here we are, 4-7, and it's the end of the season, and I'm sitting here going, I don't know. None of the team is very clutch at the moment. Clearly the defense in shambles, and I get it. That is the main priority, the main focus, and should be. But we've talked about it, and we know what this defense is for this whole season now. Do you want me to continue to say that we got no guys there to help? Like that's the whole conversation. That's it. That's all we can really talk about on defense is there's no one to help and the coaching sucks. On offense, we can at least have a conversation of like, well, maybe they could have won, right? There's a chance that they could have won, and that's the whole reason why we had faith in them up until this point in the season was because of this offense and how they were capable of winning a ball game, capable of winning a shootout, but they haven't proven to do so. And you said earlier,
you look what happened you look at last night, okay? And again, the first 3 drives of the second half, okay? Well, not to note, because the first drive of the second half, they punted. They went 3 and out. Let me make sure I got that right here. So at the end of the game here, 3 and out. Okay. Then they come back, 11 plays, 70 yards, touchdown. They force a 3 and out. 4 plays, 50 yards, touchdown. They force a fumble. Then they go 7 plays, 71 yards, touchdown. Defense forces a 4-play drive. So it's 27-27. You get the ball, you start straight down the field, then you get to the Chargers' 34-yard line after Burrow scrambles for a 14-yard gain on a 3rd and 9. So now you got 1st and 10 at the 34. Tie game. First down, 4-yard run by Chase Brown. You're 2nd and 6. Why not run it again? Why not run it again? But no, they don't do that. They ask Burrow again. Throw it, incomplete. Throw it 3rd and 6, incomplete. By the way, he was throwing to Drew Sample on 2nd and 6 at the 30. In a 27-27 game, they're throwing to Drew Sample to try and save their season. They have Higgins on the field. They have Chase on the field. They have Gesicki on the field. They have Chase Brown on the field, who's playing the game of his life. And as they're trying to go in for the winning score, they're throwing to Drew Sample. Okay, but it's incomplete. Now here comes the field goal, 48 yards wide. Defense turns around, forces 3 and out again. And Herbert's starting to look like the guy that we've always said Herbert is. And that's at money time. By the way, the Chargers have lost 10 straight games decided by 3 points or fewer. Now, last night wound up to be a 7-point game. Herbert has lost 10 in a row in games decided by 3 points or fewer. So that's the 4th longest such streak in the history of the league. Bengals get the ball back after a punt. First down. Burrow scrambles for 14 yards. Here we go. Right? Then all of a sudden, what happens? Pass incomplete on 1st down. 2nd down. Pass incomplete. 3rd down. Pass incomplete. Punt. Now the Chargers get it back. Minute whatever. They score the touchdown by a couple good passes, pass plays by Herbert, and then the touchdown run by J.K. Dobbins. But, for people who – and look, if Burrow can come out, and I mean, you're going to say, well, what do you expect him to say? If Burrow can come out and say, hey, you know what? There's some plays that I've missed. Then we're allowed to say that Burrow's missing plays. Again, we take him more than anybody else in front of anybody else in the league. But if you know your defense stinks and sooner or later they've played their tail off for nearly an entire half, they've given up 3. And you have 3 chances near the end of the game to win the game and win a shootout, because you have to win a shootout. You can't do it, and you don't get it done. I just cannot believe how unprepared this team was for that game last night. This is a typical Cincinnati kind of moment for me. And I live here, and I love it here, and I love our teams here. But it seems like every time, and there are exceptions, there are outliers, but it seems like it's time for a big series in baseball. It's time for a big game in football. And you can say, well, they went to back-to-back AFC championship. Yeah, that's right. And I had a lot more hair. That was 2 years ago. I mean, come on. Come on. For them to show up and look the way they did in the first half, and that's on the players too, it's not just on the coaching, was brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Yeah, it was very, very tough to watch, Tom. Frustrations boiling over and caught on camera on the sidelines, like Trey Hendrickson smacking Taylor's hands away, Pratt blowing up on the sideline. I mean, there's just it's just not a good look. They're frustrated right now. The culture is being tested right now. What culture there is left, I guess. And I don't know, man. I feel like before I see people in the chat here, they're saying that we're blaming Burrow, and that's not what we're doing.
That's not what we're doing here. And the same people like Sean Connor said, look, Burrow missed that huge throw in crunch time last night. He said so after the game. He had Chase wide open down the sideline and overthrew him. That's not beating somebody up. And King's in here. 3 touchdowns, 350 yards. King, we know that. And nobody is sitting here blaming Burrow. I tell you what makes me angry is watching him get killed back there. And he doesn't, and some late hits, by the way, on him and some of his teammates. And you don't have one offensive lineman who just steps up and shoves somebody. And even if you get a penalty, you're like, we're not going to watch this crap. We're not going to watch it. We're not watching it. Their quarter, I have never seen a guy get hit more than Burrow did last night. And he just kept playing, man. Dude is an absolute stud.
Yeah,
Casey, there's no way that he can survive this season. And Lord, I'm praying to you in front of everybody that this does not happen. But this guy is getting freaking killed back there.
Oh, massacred, Tom. I mean, the offensive line that we thought was fixed. I mean, it was fixed for about a season, and then it's kind of deteriorated into what it is now. The guards, Volson and Kappa, 2 of the worst guards. They are the 2 worst guards as a duo in the league. Without Orlando Brown Jr., we've been getting killed off the edge too. I mean, and Mims is making rookie mistakes, and I'm not gonna kill Mims. He's not the main issue here, but he did make a couple rookie mistakes. And Burrow, I mean, this is why I kill Zach Taylor and the offense and the philosophy of it and the schematic of it, because and sometimes even the play calling, but I'm not going to go into that discussion today.
No, it's not even worth it today.
But Joe is getting killed out there. I mean, you're asking him to throw 50 times, and I get it. That's the only way we're going to be competitive, because you don't have a run game. But that's an issue. That's a problem. Why did this team have such an issue this season? Maybe not yesterday, because yesterday they ran the ball pretty effectively. But as the whole season has gone on, they've struggled to run the ball and give some pressure off of Burrow. And he's just getting killed out there. And they're asking him to drop back every single time. And he's getting hit after every play. After every touchdown, he's on the ground. I do fear for him. If you're going to ask me what they should do now, in all honesty, and they won't do this, but as a fan, as someone that is an analytical study of the game and someone that will spend years building up a team, I'm shutting down Joe Burrow. I'm putting Jake Browning out there and seeing if he can produce the next however many games, because then you might have a trade piece in him.
Casey, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that.
Why risk it?
You cannot sit Joe Burrow for the rest of this season because of what you said earlier. Is there a chance? Unlikely. Is there a chance that they can rip off the next 3 or 4 with him at quarterback? And then all of a sudden you're going, wait a minute now, and we're doing this whole playoff dance again? You can't do it to your fan base. You can't do it to the guys in that locker room. I'm not saying you're crazy for thinking it. I thought about it when I was out walking the dog last night before bed, walking around the neighborhood at midnight. And and I thought to myself, I wonder if they should think about doing that. Joe Burrow would melt down if you thought about benching him in a season where he's healthy and playing the best football of his career. You cannot bench Joe Burrow.
I know. But you asked me, like, as a crazy fan and someone that wants to build a future up, that's what I would do. But that's not realistic. And I know that's not realistic. And even if I was probably in control of that team, I would still probably rush Burrow out there. But I'll tell you what, I'm not throwing him 50 times a game. Hell no to that.
You're right.
I am doing what I can to protect him. I still want him to play well. But maybe instead of, spreading the ball out, all I'm doing is saying, all right, I'm going to target Jamar Chase 20 times a game. We're going to throw the ball 25, 30 times a game. We're going to run the ball.
Now you're talking.
And if we can't win games like that, well, we're at least doing something for our future, getting a high draft pick. Because I'm not risking Joe anymore. I'm just not. I refuse to. I mean, I don't know how many times I can stomach Joe Burrow just grimacing after every sack. It's not worth it. If he gets hurt and he's out for even parts of next year, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
It's a great point. I cannot argue with you on that. I mean, I can't, because I got so much respect for the dude, man. I mean, there are some people in here that think sometimes I'm getting on him. I'm not getting on him. That guy is the ultimate warrior, man. I mean, to watch him last night and just get up time after time after time, and they kept taking that shot of him in the huddle and the look in his eye and looking around that huddle like, we're going to win this game. Come on, let's make a play. This guy is just unbelievable. And we are so lucky to have him. And I fear so much. Hey, look, Burrow told Collinsworth and all those guys apparently in the meeting, Collinsworth said it, that Burrow said to him, I feel like I'm playing the best football of my career and we're not winning games.
He is.
Yeah. And he's the first passer in the league over 3,000. That's because they ask him to throw it 45, 50 times every game. But he's just unbelievable. And, look, we saw Carson Palmer, who was a talent like Joe Burrow. You may not like Carson Palmer, but he was that kind of a talent. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. He was the number one pick. He was all those things that Burrow is. And he went straight south on this organization. Now I think he's gone over the top. It's gotten a little old now. I mean, let it go. But for a long time, he said a lot of things that a lot of people around here didn't want to hear. And I just wonder, I don't see that as part of Burrow's DNA. But I just wonder, if this cat keeps getting killed the way he's getting killed, when does he sooner or later stand up and say, this is enough? All right, it's time for the fellows on Off the Bench. Casey, thank you so much for everything, my friend. You the man.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
We had hundreds, if not thousands, of you in the chat. This has been awesome. Hope you've enjoyed the program. Thursday, we're going to get into the whole college football playoff thing. The Bengals are off this week. So Thursday, we're not rehashing this game again. We're going to find something to look forward to, okay? And without a doubt, the game in college football this Saturday is 90 minutes up the road in Columbus, where it's going to be Ohio State against Indiana. And Indiana had last week off. They've got a lot of guys on that offensive line that are beat up, and they don't have the depth that some of the quote-unquote big boys do. Ohio State's depth has been tested on the O-line, but they don't, Alabama, Ohio State, you got 4 or 5 guys who are 3, 4, 5-star prospects that are backups. Indiana doesn't have that. So they need that line to be healthy. But boy, are they exciting. Boy, are they exciting. And is that right, Chase? Ohio State? There's no way Ohio State's an 11-point favorite in that game. Is that right, Casey?
I'll double check for you. I'll double check.
I say it all the time. One of the 2 or 3 sins I don't have is gambling. There's no way they're an 11-point favorite in that game.
12.5-point favorite.
I was going to say, Chase just jumped in and said, sorry, -12. I am shocked by that. All right. All right, Casey, good seeing you. Thanks for everything. The fellas are ready to roll on Off the Bench. Here we go.
The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, we are off and rolling here on a Monday. It's Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister. I'd like to think that thumbs down is just for the mood and not me, but I get a lot of thumbs down from people. But guys, good morning. Shout to Jacob.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Well, morning.
Yeah.
But no, you're here. You're rocking. You're ready to go. I know, I stayed up to about 1 watching you and Reed last night on Chatterbox Bengals postgame. But I know everyone's in dumpy moods today. And for anyone that thinks I'm going to take shots today, I might take shots because you guys know I enjoy taking shots. I won't take shots at your Cincinnati Bengals. Tough morning, fellas. Good morning.
It is. We appreciate that. We appreciate the no shots, at least to start, because we know they'll come at some point. But at least you're going to act like you won't. But that's okay, because I know if this was happening to your team, I would be taking shots. So I can't be that mad about it. It's rough, though. It's a rough spot.
Yeah, it's a bad morning. I mean, it's bad. I don't really have, it's just bad. I mean, it's bad.
Nope, I get that. And no, I'm really not there's really not shots to take, because if I take, anything I say is stuff that you guys have already said about this dumpy situation for the Cincinnati Bengals. Because I have to say, I didn't envision this. Even the troll that lives deep down inside of me, that of course, sometimes leads my takes. That troll didn't envision the problems that exist within this team. And I don't know what's worse. Let me ask you guys this: what was worse? Just just that feeling you had at halftime where this team just couldn't do anything right, or what was it the post game feeling of, man, everything started going right until it didn't? I don't know at what point of that game last night, was it when the clock hit 0 and you realized that win was not going to happen, or was it at halftime when you thought, well, the season's completely done? I don't know. It was a very weird roller coaster of a game, and it's basically a microcosm of what the entire season has been to this point to begin with.
I would give anything to lose by 90 points every Sunday. Anything. Stop with these close games. Stop giving me this much hope. Why do we keep winning or going one-score games with the top competitors in the league? That's the number 1 defense in the NFL. And the Bengals put up more points than anyone's put up against them all year long. And you still can't get the win because your kicker can't make 2 field goals at the end of the game. It's just unbelievable amounts of hope that they keep giving you without actually getting any results. They kept losing games, but they kept losing games in a way that we weren't able to get out on this team. And then now we're sitting here at 4-7, and we're still trying to find a path because Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in football, and we think that should equal wins, and it just doesn't. And I think that's why it's so frustrating, is because anyone else that has these pieces, an elite quarterback, an elite wide receiver, an elite edge rusher, they're winning games, and the Bengals just aren't doing it.
You said you couldn't envision it. Nobody can envision this. There hasn't been one single loss outside of the Eagles this season where it's been just a normal game. The Patriots game, people forget about the insane turnovers we've had in that one. The Tanner Hudson lunging for the goal line, the Charlie Jones fumble in the punt. Every single loss this season has defied logic. You can't, I tweeted it this morning, you can't explain this Bengals season to somebody who didn't watch a game. You can't possibly explain what happened last night. There's no logic for it. You can't explain the Ravens' loss last week. You can't. I watch these games now, and it's like you think you get numb to it. You can't get numb to these losses. If it's a bad team and you know that going in, the season's easy. You watch it, you hope for some hope, and that's it. That's what you watch for. There's no hope. This is heartbreak after heartbreak. You don't just get normalized to losing this way. Every single game they should win. In every single game they lose. Last night, I would have rather them lost last night 95-2. That's what I would have rather them lost. Because then maybe there's some change and maybe it's the start of something else. This feels like the end of something. What you're seeing this year. This feels like the end of a story. When you get to the Super Bowl, you make that miracle run. You were projected 6 wins that year. You get to a Super Bowl. That was the start of something. This disaster zone we find ourselves in, this is the end. This is the end. And how you start something new after this, I don't know. I don't know. Do you want to start something new with what we've got? I don't. We got 3 guys. We got 3 guys. Outside of those 3 guys, I don't know what we have. And I watch these games and I lose words because you can't explain this to people. No team in NFL history loses games like this. Nobody. And the fact that I'm going to rant here. If you have to put sports into like a couple words, there's skill and then there's luck, right? The Bengals have not had any luck at all. I've never seen a team have zero luck. Zero luck. 0.0 luck has gone the Bengals' way. Nothing. Not one thing has gone the Bengals' way this season. I've never seen that. They have the talent. Joe Burrow is going to throw 45 touchdown passes this year. They're going to win 7 games? What? I don't get it. Up until last night, they had not been trailing in the half in 7 straight games. They've been trailing heading into half, I think, 4 times this season. And you find ways to lose. Every single week's a different way to lose. Sometimes it's the defense, sometimes it's the offense, sometimes it's the special teams. There has not been one complete game this year. Not one. I don't know how you classify this season, other than it being just a complete waste of our time. And that's unfortunately what it is. Sorry for the rant.
You're muted.
He's muted.
Muted yourself. That's tough.
That's tough. I think this season has come down to a couple things, and I don't truly understand it, but it's going to come down to this. Blame Zach Taylor, don't blame Zach Taylor. Blame the coaching staff, don't blame the coaching staff. At the end of the day, there needs to be change.
Yeah.
There has to be. You can't roll out the same exact thing next year. It doesn't work. It's not going to work.
That's what I think it comes back to now, and I'm getting to the point where I got today, and I hate to do the Reds-Bengals comparison, but I said it last night.
Check 1.
There we go.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You got to compare them because they're the 2 teams I root for. They're 2 teams I care about. So that's the biggest way I can rationalize a lot of things. And where I got to David Bell after defending him for a long time with the Reds at the end was he's not making a positive impact. My argument is that he's not moving the needle. So why not just try something else? Sure, let's go do it. And if it doesn't work, fine. But at least you tried something. That's exactly where I'm at with Taylor right now. I think the offense is fine, if not great. And everything else is probably a net negative, so he's probably a wash. And if you're a wash as an NFL head coach, get him out of here. My only worry is when we fire the coach and Bengals don't go get anyone at the top of the market because they're the cheapest organization in the league, and we go get the 49ers passing game coordinator because he had a cup of coffee with Sean McVay 4 years ago. I don't think that's going to work either, and we're in the same spot in 3 years. So I think it's so much bigger than the coaching staff, and I would expect – I don't know. It's the bye week, so maybe by Wednesday, Lou's fired as the first scapegoat of this whole thing. Frank Pollock probably soon after that, the O-line coach. They're going to start dropping like flies because they're going to start blaming the people that cost them the least amount of money. And then as soon as we get down the line to the point where we get to Zach Taylor, that's when push is going to come to shove because he will be dead money on the books. And then you want to go pay the top market head coach. I don't think the Bengals would do that. So I think we're stuck with Taylor. We got to hope the other moves that they can make, the position coaches, the coordinators, and maybe draft philosophy is enough to change the course of this franchise.
I didn't one time last night. I didn't one time utter the name Zach Taylor. The Zach Taylor thing to me, and I think Jacob summed it up pretty perfectly. I'd argue there's a very big difference. Like, I look at Jim Harbaugh on the sideline. I look at Jim Harbaugh after winning that game. Jim Harbaugh going up to the press conference afterwards, and he just cheers in front of everybody, and he celebrates the win. You don't see that here. It's just you get the same mundane thing, and it's literally the same exact story as David Bell. It's the same story. The only difference is you only have 17 games. You only have 17 games in the NFL. You don't get an entire season. You get 17 games. So we'll see where the Bengals go. I would clean house. I think last night's loss broke the locker room. I think that was the final.
Oh yeah, it's lost.
I think that was the final. Like the one positive. He had one thing going for him, and this was this culture they speak of. Great culture, Zach Taylor. That culture's dead. It's over.
What can you hang your hat on as a culture if every time you draft a player and they play at an all-pro level, you don't give them any money? What do you build on? What are players playing for if you're not rewarding anyone? And maybe I've trusted this organization way too much in this window. I justified the Jesse Bates move. I justified the Joe Mixon move. Maybe I'm just going to switch. Maybe I'm just going to come all the way over to Casey's side. If you get good players in the draft, just pay them whatever they need. Keep them forever. T. Higgins plays 10 games a year. Who cares? When he's out there, he's a damn good wide receiver. Pay him his money. Pay the guys that help you win games. At some point, you have to change it because what we've been doing doesn't work. It's not working. And they're going to go into this draft class and they're going to have the same exact mindset. And they're going to draft some guy that they only saw in the college football playoff because they don't have a scouting department that can watch the regular season. He's going to be the captain of his high school because they care about that. And they're not going to watch any film. And he's going to come in and he's going to be a bust and cut after 3 years. That's what they do every draft class. And you wonder why it continues to not work. It's because you have the most expensive quarterback contract in the league and you can't supplement it with young talent. And when you do have young talent, you don't play it. We've complained about these DBs all year long. Cam Taylor-Britt finally gets benched last night. DJ Turner and Josh Newton looked far and away the best 2 corners we've had all year. I don't know why they won't play the young guys that you have in the building because you don't even have many of them.
I don't know. Cam Taylor-Britt's the worst cornerback of all time.
He's so bad.
Of all time. Will Dissly, I think, could run laps around him.
Will Dissly is there, Drew Sample.
Will Dissly was there to block. Block. He had 100 yards. 100 yards. Cam Taylor-Britt's allowed the most touchdowns in the league. You can't explain this. You can't rationalize it. Good luck to the Bengals the rest of the way, finding their way out of this hole. Good luck to them. Because now you've lost the quarterback. You've lost the star wide receiver. It all started. I forget who said this on Twitter. I think it was Elmore. I agree with it. When you make that disaster of a distraction at the beginning of the year with Jamar Chase's contract, I think everybody was done. I think that was the end of it. I think people were tired of playing for an organization that doesn't pay people. I truly believe it. I think that's 100% accurate. I think they said, "Hey Jamar, let's get a deal done." He said, "Sure, let's get a deal done." They came in, they lowballed him, and then he's like, and people who don't like me saying the word lowball, they offered him a contract that clearly he didn't want, even though they initiated it. And then after that, it was like, okay, I guess I'll just go to work without a contract, even though you guys said we're going to get a contract done. And now the whole locker room knows it. Everybody knows it. So it's been a disaster, Kenner. It's truly been a disaster.
Hopefully, is my mic working now? Are we good?
It's working.
Okay, cool. So I don't know what happened with that. My apologies, but we're back. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. ESPN 1410 Wing AM. In Dayton, the Bengals have broken everybody. It's a very, like maybe if I make a joke, will that help? Like, this show feels like CNN on November 6th. Okay, thank you. There you go.
Elliot,
Jacob.
always politics.
Always, yeah. I'm just trying to lighten the mood a little bit. But we'll be right back. We're going to continue with this. Zach Taylor was asked about any potential changes that could be coming heading into the bye week, of course. His response was interesting. We'll also talk about, I'm surprised we made it. Let's see, we are 14 minutes into the show. We have not mentioned the name Evan McPherson. That'll change coming up here around the corner. AFC North, AFC in general, the playoff picture. Is the playoff picture even something you're interested in discussing today? We're going to go with the flow here today. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll be right back. All right, and we are back. Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. Let's see Casey. Casey, my apologies. I never even brought you into the show earlier. How are you, Casey? I know you're a show in, but how you feeling?
Kenner, it's just not great. It's not a great spot to be in. I was texting our group chat, and I said, I'm back to feeling bad about myself for being a Bengals fan. After the Super Bowl, I felt so good about being a Bengals fan. I felt confident, felt like we were finally turning the page, turning a corner. Turns out we're still the same old Bengals. We just caught lightning in a bottle. And that just, when that reality kind of hits you and sinks in, it makes you feel really, really sad. So I'm not in a good spot. And we still have, 6-7 weeks left? Tough.
So I want to bring this up, too, just from like an outsider's perspective, from a Bengals perspective, too. I know everyone loves a good underdog, right? Like we talk about that on this show all the time. I hate underdogs, right? You guys know, no, but like we talk about great underdog stories all the time. People love that, and that's what the Cincinnati Bengals were initially in the Joe Burrow era. They were the underdog, and now all of a sudden they have expectations, and that's kind of watered down the feel good vibes when it comes to this organization. Because at some point, when you have a quarterback like Joe Burrow, and when you have the talent that they have at certain key positions, you shouldn't be underdogs anymore. You shouldn't be looked at as a team that's constantly having to overcome something. I know the Chiefs are overcoming some injuries and lack of talent in that wide receiver room, but I think if you listen to sports radio over in Kansas City, it's not as doom and gloom today. I know they came off a loss, but it's not as doom and gloom with all the deficiencies they have, because they spend more time talking about their quarterback from the perspective of, hey, they're winning games. They're not talking about their deficiencies. They talk about their defense. They talk about the run game. They talk about Andy Reid. At a certain point with the Cincinnati Bengals, it's exhausting constantly talking about the success that they do have in spite of something. Oh, Joe Burrow, he's great in spite of that offensive line. Joe Burrow's great in spite of that bad defense. The Cincinnati Bengals could be good, they're good in spite of that special teams or defense or lack of a run game, what have you. Every year throughout the Joe Burrow era, it has always been the storyline of they are good in spite of something. And every team has deficiencies, but it just seems the deficiencies never seem to be truly addressed. Intent is there, it seems. I mean, to the front office's credit, even after a couple years of acting like it was just going to get better on its own, they decided to invest heavily into the offensive line. And they've spent a lot of money on an offensive line that is still getting their quarterback beat to hell. I know Orlando Brown Jr. is not out there. I know that would make a huge difference. Mims, you want to have expectations for him, obviously, and I think big picture he's going to be very good, but, he hasn't been as dominant of a rookie offensive lineman as you'd expect. So Joe Burrow's having to overcome that. They can't run the football well at all. Is that an O-line issue, a scheme issue? Maybe the just running backs aren't, super talented. I don't know. They have to overcome that. Evan McPherson, you think you have a great kicker, and he was. Let's not act. I'm not going to sit here and say he's a fraud. No, he was really good, and now he's not. Now they have to overcome that. It just, in Cincinnati, it's exhausting, because what used to feel like a great underdog story of overcoming adversity is winning right now. And that's not a shot at Joe Burrow or anybody. At some point, when you constantly test your luck with adversity is going to win. And I don't know how this adversity gets addressed. I don't know what the answer is at this point. I've never seen you guys this deflated. We were, as a unit, deflated because the one thing we all are as Reds fans. We were as a unit deflated throughout July and August when the reality kicked in that, okay, this team is actually not good. But this is like that times 10. You guys are deflated. At a certain point, are you guys just exhausted with the constant adversity storyline? At some point, it has to be, we're the Bengals, we're good because we have Joe Burrow, because we have, Jamar Chase. And I know that's who you guys talk about a lot, but it's just not enough right now. Like the storyline of adversity has to be exhausting at a certain point. Eventually, it needs to turn to the Bengals are the best team in the AFC, not, oh man, they're overcoming something constantly. That has to be exhausting when it comes to that.
That's all we want. That's all we want. Look as dominant as it feels when the offense is on the field. And in a lot of these games, what does that take? 2 or 3 defensive stops, and you have those blowouts because the offense is scoring 40 points. And normally that's all it takes. In our group chat yesterday, well before the Bengals blew it, well before we were as down as we are now, our old friend Jimmy's Lions, absolutely dominated the Jaguars. What was the text you sent?
I said, Jimmy, what's it like cheering for a franchise that kills other franchises?
It looks like it would be really, really fun.
And they've done it, by the way, 3 times this season. They've scored 50 points roughly 3 times.
And it's resulted in a blowout. When the Bengals score 50 points, they lose 54-50. It's ridiculous how this continues to happen. People were in our chat last night, and I don't want to get all the way into the Joe Burrow conversation because it makes me sick that people try to blame him in any way, shape, or form for how this season's going.
Yeah, I saw the Joe Burrow wasn't clutch tweets.
Yeah,
last night.
That's fun. He scored 21 unanswered in the second half. You need to score 5 touchdowns in a row against the best NFL defense, then that's maybe you're asking too much. Maybe you need perfection, but that's what he said after the game. He knows what he needs to do. The margin for error is so slim, but it's just, I don't get it. I don't get what to do from here because we have the pieces that it requires to have that dominant team, those blowouts, and it's just not coming. You can't have those 2 sides of the ball play well at the same time. It just doesn't happen.
3 sides of the ball. They don't have.
Right,
I mean, that's the other part of it. It's the special teams unit has been the worst it's ever been. I'm not going to sit here and say I study the ranks of special teams units across the National Football League, but I watch this one and it's pretty terrible. I mean, it's just pretty. We got a good punter. Shout out to the punter. I don't know if he's a good holder when it comes to the field goal situation, but I'll be damned if he can't punt at 95 yards. And Kinner, you brought up the Reds. Baseball's easy, man. Baseball's the easiest thing in the world because it's 162 games. I'll lose interest after they are 20 games below in late July. That's easy. You turn off the TV and you're done because you don't watch anything else. You don't watch the Yankees, you don't watch other baseball. You watch the Reds, and if they're terrible, 162 games is more than enough to figure out if they're bad or not. But I'd argue the Reds, they looked bad from the beginning and they ended bad. The Bengals, when you're this good at one side of the ball, and there's no wins to account for it, nobody else has dealt with this. This is a one-of-one situation. There is no other franchise that has suffered the losses that we have this season. The Cincinnati Bengals have this season. This is a one-of-one. And to be quite honest, there is they were trying to find answers in the postgame, how do you explain the not being able to finish games late? How do you explain these terrible losses? And every single one of them was I don't know. You got to make every play in the world because there's no margin for error. Zero.
Well, on that too, I'm not advocating for criticism of Joe Burrow or the Bengals offense, but if there was to be criticism,
lost his mic.
Kinner,
And you're gone again.
You're gone again.
If there is criticism to be made, it's he missed Jamar Chase deep. He missed T. Higgins on a
Sure.
slant. He missed throws last night that he makes, and you know that he's the true leader of this team, the quarterback that you want, because right after the game, what did he say when he's as down as he has been all year standing at that podium? He said, I missed the throws.
Yeah.
How easy would it have been for him to blame anyone else? That would have been very easy. And a lot of other players did. He stood up there and took the blame himself, which whether he should have or not, I certainly don't put any blame on him, but kudos to him for doing so.
But we can't, I just can't sit here and be like, Joe Burrow. And by the way, one of those misses resulted in a first down.
Correct.
So it's like.
Right. And arguably a better play at the time because
Yeah.
it keeps you in bounds and keeds the clock rolling instead of scoring right away.
I can't sit here and blame Joe Burrow. I can blame.
While we're on blaming Joe Burrow, he has now tied the record in NFL history for most losses in a single season with 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. We have 6 weeks left.
Great.
Yes, Casey.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on people blaming Joe Burrow. And I don't even know if it's because they necessarily put all the blame on him. I kind of understand the concept of when you get the ball on offense with a couple minutes left, can you score? Can you put the game away? They've not been able to do that this season. They've failed to do so 5 times against good teams, albeit. And I'm not going to sit here and crush the offense, but I do think as talk show hosts, as the sports talk shows, there's only so many times we can sit here and say, yeah, this defense is bad. It has no players. At some point, we got to talk about some other things, and we know what this team is. And so people have to start to kind of look really introspective on this team and say, well, they had the ball with time left and they weren't able to make it touchdowns. They missed 2 field goals, punted that. Those are all.
It's 3 consecutive drives,
Yeah.
a 3-drive stretch where they had 3 total yards.
Yeah, it's just not good.
Yeah.
So
there's been those pockets all year long, which I think is another frustrating piece. It's where does it go? And why does it change? Because when I'm watching the Bengals, I don't see some drastic offensive philosophical change between the first half and second half last night. I just see guys making the plays that they weren't making when the opportunities presented themselves in the first half.
Yeah.
It seems like these guys just flip a switch, and when they want to play well, they do. And that's the stat that you said. I heard people keep bringing up that they didn't trail at halftime for the last 6 games going into last night. That's just as big of a problem to me as it is a positive. What did we see last night? The same thing, just flipped. They played 1 good half and lost it because they couldn't do anything in 1 half. They just did the bad half first.
That's the difference between, and this is when I brought up luck at the beginning of the show. There was luck the past couple of seasons.
Yeah.
There's been undisputably good luck, good fortune the Bengals have had. When the Bengals went on that magical run, that 10-game winning streak, there were games where it was like this, right? You'd play a good half, You'd play a good half of football, and then I don't think so.
God damn.
That one worked. I can hear you now, but it's going to cut out. I feel like it's definitely going to cut out again.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to get this figured out. I know everyone enjoys when my mic's not working.
I hear you.
We're good.
When the Bengals play one good half of football in the past, it's worked their way. It's gone their way. It has gone their way this year, and that's where I'm just going to blame coaching. I don't know who else I'm supposed to blame. Who else am I supposed to blame?
I am going to blame Evan McPherson.
I want to blame him in a little bit. I don't want to blame him yet. I'm going to blame him too. But
real quick,
I blame coaching.
You have to 100%.
How many games can you not play a complete game? How many seasons can you not play a complete season? How many years you start behind the 8 ball? How many years are you going to lose right off the rip, right off the bat, loss? Yeah. And that's where I don't know enough about football to sit here and be like, it's the schemes, it's this and it's that. But I know there's other this is a tweet I saw yesterday. Zach Taylor and Matt LaFleur got head coaching jobs in 2019. LaFleur has 20 more wins. Kevin Stefanski was hired a year later. He has 2 fewer wins than Zach Taylor. Dan Campbell has 20 fewer games than Zach Taylor, 4 games back in wins. Surely they will all pass him at the end of this season. So my question is, when is enough enough? He went to a Super Bowl. Congratulations. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Zach. But it's not enough. You have Joe Burrow. If you have a top 5 quarterback, and I'd argue he's number 3, if you have a top 3 quarterback and you're not winning games consistently, something has to go. Something has to change. And what's the common denominator? It's Zach Taylor. I'm not going to sit here and just say fire Zach Taylor, because we say it every single week. Every single loss you blame him. And every single loss we know that he's not going to get fired. But at some point, changes have to be made. You can't do it again. Next season, if this happens again, then what? Then what's the answer? There is none. You're out of answers.
Right, my mic sounds nice now. How about that? Are we good?
You're
hey,
good,
just to
brother.
clarify, I was not about to criticize Burrow earlier. The only thing I was going to say was the people that are criticizing him for late in that game. The only pushback I'd give on that, I'm not criticizing him for late in that game. Hell, it was a game because of what he did in the second half. But like the offense getting off to the slow start, like I don't know why everyone doesn't have a problem with that. And everyone always puts that all on Zach. People always put just that on Zach, and that is on Zach, by the way. Slow starts to the season, everyone puts that on Zach. But again, when the offense shows that it could dominate that Chargers defense, again, flat in the first half. I mean, everyone blamed the defense for the first half, but the offense was responsible for only putting up 6 points in the first half to begin with on top of that. Joe Burrow's been great. I'm not here to poo-poo on that. All I'm saying is last night, the people that had more criticisms about his his comeback in the second half versus the first half, I'm like, those first halves, I know people say, oh, he has to be perfect. Yes. He's paid to be perfect, as in playing a full game, maybe not making every single throw. But that first half last night was abysmal. That was a full team effort. My only thing I don't like is when people put all the effort stuff on coaching. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, the offense. If you need Zach Taylor to say, hey, let's go play with energy, then that's a you problem. That's not on Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor, yes, he's going to be responsible for how his team looks when they go out there. But this team shouldn't need a kick in the pants by Zach Taylor to want to go out and play on a Sunday night football game when your season's on the line. I put that first half on everybody. Joe Burrow's not immune to criticism in the first half. He was fantastic in the second half, no doubt about it. But I don't know why that team came out as flat as they did last night. The Chargers are a good football team, yes. But the Chargers played that first half last night as if their season was on the line. The Bengals came out in that first half as if they were just like, we're comfortable in a playoff spot right now. It should not have taken a half last night for everyone to get it going. Could talk about the missed field goals by McPherson, this, that, and the other. They had to put a full 4-quarter effort last night, and they didn't do that. The defense, I mean, it was wild watching the effort that they put in the second half. I mean, that was a great second half. The Ravens game, same thing. You got a half of great football from the defense, and then it goes away. It's just like they cannot put all these puzzle pieces together at one time. There's so many deficiencies, so many problems, and it leads to so many fingers being pointed in so many different directions. It's just a chaotic scene right now in Cincinnati, and that's what's unfortunate coming out of that matchup last night.
I just don't think, like, if you watch the first half, like, that wasn't a Joe Burrow issue. Why
wasn't it?
Because the offensive line's the worst of all time, Kenner. He doesn't have any time to throw.
Wasn't it bad in the second? So why was it not bad in the second half?
I'd make the argument that Joe Burrow made adjustments at the half and that he was able to overcome those completely himself. I'd make that. I think he probably said, I don't want to lose anymore, so I'm gonna try to win in spite of all this nonsense. I don't think the offensive line's good. I just don't think
it's the worst interior in the league by a country mile.
Like, Joe Burrow had 0 seconds to throw last night. If he took one step drop, he was done. It was over. And even when he got the ball off, he was getting killed. So if our takeaway from that game is let's blame Joe Burrow, I can't co-sign. I
didn't say blame Joe Burrow.
I'm not saying he did. I'm not saying he did, but I'm saying there's a lot of people out there that are saying he's not clutch enough. And it's just like, if he's not clutch, I don't know what clutch is. Because he
3 touchdowns in 15 minutes.
He did enough to win that game. He drove down the field twice in field goal range. That's why you have kickers in football. That's why they're there. That you sign a kicker before the season, and that's why they're there. Joe Burrow did enough to get in field goal range twice at the end of that game. That was more than enough to win the football game. Didn't happen. Like, that's my issue.
All right, this is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Let's talk about Zach Taylor when we come back. I know it's exhausting talking about Zach Taylor, but Zach Taylor was asked, what can we expect heading into the bye week? Because right now you have 2 weeks to tinker with some things to try to make a change. What changes can we expect out of Cincinnati? Zach Taylor's response, kind of interesting. We'll get to that next. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliott Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here off the bench, 1410 ESPN Radio and Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. All right, so last night, Zach Taylor, of course, asked about this heading into the bye week. What changes can we expect? The Bengals are 4-7. You guys seem out on their playoff hopes. I know mathematically that number, they're still within striking distance. But when you can't beat good teams, I get why morale is so low that you're just like, forget this is stupid even talking about the playoffs. But they are heading into a bye week. 2 weeks, before their next game, and they have the Steelers, all right, coming up, and the Steelers are one of the best teams in football right now. But Zach Taylor was asked about any potential changes that could be coming or what kind of tweaks they can make over the next couple of weeks. Zach Taylor says that wholesale changes would be panic. Wholesale changes would be panic. That's not what the answer is. That was Zach Taylor's response to what tweaks or adjustments can be made here at the bye week. And on one hand, I kind of agree. But on the other hand, I'm tired of hearing about that about the Bengals. Oh, there's never panic. They never make urgent moves. They never address needs. They never address problems. It's the most Bengals thing ever to say, we're not going to panic. We're not going to make changes during the bye week. What that would signal that we're panicking. Zach Taylor, if there was ever a time to panic, now's the time to panic. Now's maybe a week too late, but if there was ever a time to panic, now's the time to panic. When Zach Taylor says that, guys, I'm curious your thoughts. When asked about wholesale changes coming, a potential maybe firing of Anarumo, a potential giving up play calling to just change it up a bit, just make something different to show that you're making an effort. And he says, well, wholesale changes would show panic, and that's not what the answer is. Well, if that's not the answer, then what the hell is it? You guys?
Yeah, I don't know if Zach Taylor hasn't been watching the Bengals. I know he's coaching at the same time that they're playing, so maybe he misses some of the game. But you should be panicking. You should be panicking about probably 15 to 16 of the 22 positions. And if you throw in special teams, it's a whole lot more. There's a whole lot of panic that needs to be had in the Bengals locker room. You've slammed that initial Super Bowl window of Joe Burrow's career shut. That window is shut. You have to open a second window now, and it's because of how you handled this roster construction and his prime years. This is the best year of football he's played in his career. He said it himself. Who knows if we're ever going to get this level of play again? Because in all honesty, no one else in the league is playing at this level. So who's to say we're going to get it again? And that goes back to the coaching staff, and that's why you're not going to get changes, because if Zach Taylor makes changes, what's going to keep him here in Cincinnati? If Zach Taylor gives up play calling, he's gone. The only thing he can say to Mike Brown is, hey, look, this offense is putting up insane numbers, and I'm the play caller. Don't fire me. Don't fire me to go bring in another play caller. I'm doing my job. I would be surprised if Lou Anarumo makes it through the end of the year with how this is going. I would be surprised if Frank Pollock makes it to next season with how things are going. I fully expect Zach Taylor to be the next head coach or be the head coach next season, and I fully expect him to be the play caller as long as he's here because he's going to hold on to that because that's the only bargaining tool he has.
I have nothing to say for his post-game comments. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but he's a puppet. I mean, that's why he's here. He's a yes man. He will talk to the media real nice and real sweet. He'll bring a calming presence. He's never going to freak out. He's never going to be too excited. He's just there. He's just there. He's the mouthpiece. So that's why, like, I take nothing he says seriously, nothing, because of course you're panicking, because your coaching staff is a large part of the reason, and whether or not they are actually a large part of the reason, I think they are. They're the ones that are going to take the blame. They're the ones that are going to take the fall. You are going to take the fall. So this is just what you say as a coach. It's just how you say it. Doug Peterson, take a look at what he's saying in Jacksonville. You know, it's every week. I can't control that. Yada yada yada. And it's just words. It's just words to fill air. That's what he's doing. That's who Zach Taylor is. I don't mean to be disrespectful to the guy. Again, I think he was in over his head. I don't think he's ever really been a good head coach. And I think just because he had a cup of coffee with McVay, I don't think that qualifies you to lead a franchise. If you looked last night, Kinner, at Jim Harbaugh and then Zach Taylor in every aspect, like that's how you change an organization. It starts up top. It does. And Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, they are changing around their organization pretty damn quick. They lost pieces coming into this year. They lost them. They lost pieces, and they got significantly better. It has something to do with coaching. It has something to do with the culture that he brings in as soon as you hire him. Zach Taylor, I don't know if he has that. And it's actually I know he doesn't have that. So.
I think Zach Taylor is a great builder. I think he did a great job coming into a team that was broken, drafting Joe Burrow, drafting Jamar Chase, building his team up to a point where you are a competitor and you're respected around the league, at least to a degree. In the preseason, we were, top 5 of Super Bowl odds? That's not something that Bengals fans ever expected to be at any point in their life. And Zach Taylor got us to the point and built this team up to a point where they were in that space. I don't think he can win consistently. I think he's a great pizza party guy, culture guy. When the pressure is on every single week, he's not cut out for it. We see that a lot in baseball. You have a certain manager that's there when you're calling up all the prospects, and then when you become that 100-win team, you get the next guy that's actually going to start winning.
Yep.
I think that's what we're seeing here. Zach Taylor built this team up, has built the locker room up, and now he can't win consistently when the expectations have reached a new height.
I know this is part of football, and look, this is the difference between and I agree with you guys earlier about the Joe Burrow thing being clutch. Like last night, I heard you and Reed talk about this. Like, he hasn't. When's the last time he led a team down the field for a? I mean, he did it twice last night. Obviously, just didn't make the. The field goals were missed. But that's the if that's the same thing with Zach though. Zach Taylor last night. If McPherson hits those kicks, Zach Taylor helps lead the Bengals to a massive win to keep their playoff hopes alive. If they do that against the Ravens, Zach Taylor leads helps lead the Bengals. Like, that's the unfortunate part about this. The margin for error is so slim, and every time that tiny mistake, that's not tiny, that big mistake is made, it's a trickle-down effect that makes everyone look bad. The difference between Zach Taylor looking like he knows what he's doing and not is a missed field goal by Evan McPherson, who normally hits those. And he has not. He's been bad all year. We're going to get to him in a moment. But, that's how thin the margin for error is. And it's just weird how football works that way. Because if he hits that field goal last night, Zach Taylor, I thought, looked good last night. He helped lead that. But now all of a sudden, we're all out on Zach Taylor because of Evan McPherson missing.
But you know what gives you more margin for error? Beating the worst team in the league in week 1. You beat the worst team in the league in week 1 when they come to your place and you're favored by a touchdown. That gives you margin for error for when your kicker misses a field goal you expect him to make. And that's on Zach Taylor. That's why I don't feel bad about that.
And that's fair. No, I'm not. Look, I've said I've been more of a Zach defender than I think at this point, I'm not saying Zach's bad. I just think his time is done. I think the message is run stale. I think that happens. Sometimes when coaches get fired, it's not that they're not good. It's just that their work here is done. But the problem is we're not making that decision. It's going to come to that front office. You guys talked about it. Frank Pollock could be moved. Lou Anarumo could be moved. They can make give up play calling responsibility. There's going to be a laundry list of things that happen before Zach Taylor is fired in Cincinnati, at least in the near future. That's the unfortunate part about it. But who knows? Let's step away for a few moments. Again, this is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. Money Mac or not so Money Mac? I know we've made it this far in the show. Let's get to the kicking problem. No one wants to talk. Special teams is boring. Why would you draft a kicker? Why would you get a kicker there? Everyone wants to poo-poo on special teams and poo-poo on kickers, but they're so valuable, and we're seeing it this season, and we saw it last night. Let's talk about not so Money Mac when we come back. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Sorry. All right, Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Ruring, Jacob Tissett with you here. Man, what the hell else can we talk about with this team? It's the same stuff every week. It's the same problems. When they lose, we've done the same Monday show 7 times now. 7 times we've done the same talking points, the same stuff. Like, every loss is the same. It's, oh my God, Joe Burrow was great. Oh my God, they lost. Oh my God, the offense was great. Oh my God, the defense was bad. Oh my God, Money McPherson, not so money anymore. It's the same talking points every week, but I do feel like if there's one person that has overstayed their welcome at this point and may not be going anywhere anytime soon other than Zach Taylor, Money Mac, what is going on with Evan McPherson? Because to sit here and say he's a bad kicker, that's not true. We've seen him be great, but he has not been good this year. Kicking, the kickers are so fragile in the NFL because they'll be great for years and out of nowhere just disappear. Justin Tucker has been the best kicker in the NFL for a while now, and all of a sudden he's just fallen off. He's missing field goals left and right now, right? Like, it's such a wild thing in the NFL how fragile the kicking game can be, because one season you have the best kicker in the world and the next they can't hit anything. I'm watching it in Cleveland. It's happened to Cleveland twice in the last 3 years. We're seeing it with Hopkins right now. Of course, they had that kicking situation a few years ago where they drafted a kicker. It looked good the first season. Cade York no longer kicking for any team at this point. I don't know what's going on with Money McPherson, but the pressure continues to build. He's feeling it. The entire team feels it. Man, him and Cam Taylor-Britt, those two are just the biggest punching bags on this Bengals team right now. What's your guys' takeaway on the kicking situation with the Bengals?
There's 32 professional football teams that play in the National Football League, and they all employ one kicker at a time. Evan McPherson's 29th in extra point percentage. He's 39th in field goal percentage. That's 7 spots more than the players on the teams. How is that possible? He's the most expensive kicker in the league, and he's worse than practice squad guys. It is crazy that we've gotten to this point. If he had missed half of the kicks he's missed this year, it would still be a major problem, and we'd be talking about it. It's every single time we've needed him in a big moment this year from any kind of range, I've had zero confidence. We asked the chat when we were coming down the field last night, what yard line do you want for McPherson? Everyone said if it's beyond 40, you just got to keep going. The team can't believe in him because none of us believe in him, and everyone on that sideline's a human too. You think anyone thought McPherson was making that second field goal? You think Evan McPherson thought he was making that second field goal? And I think that's probably the biggest problem. For the last however many weeks after that Ravens game, Zach Taylor stood on the sidelines and basically told Evan McPherson to his face time and time again, we don't believe in you. We're going to keep going forward in these situations. You're not good enough. And then you get to a situation last night, and maybe McPherson doesn't think he's good enough anymore. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean the post-game the post-game press conferences everywhere blaming him. Tough to watch. I mean, the one where they asked Joe Burrow, hey Joe, after Evan misses all those field goals late, what do you say to him?
Nothing.
Shakes his head. Nothing. I mean, I don't know how you recover from that one, but good luck. Evan's been bad. I can't take credit for this, but there's a guy named Adam I talk with a lot. He calls him Maybe Mac. It's not Money Mac, he's Maybe Mac. Maybe he'll make a kick. I don't know. I'm not going to bet on it anymore, though. I mean, say whatever you want about him being a good kicker in the past. It's clearly gone now. They mentioned it on the broadcast. By the way, Collinsworth, unbearable. Truly unbearable to listen to, but that's beside the point. Evan McPherson, I think there was something that happened with that operation. I think the operation hasn't been the same as it's been in the previous couple of years here. and that's clearly gotten into his head. You can't cut him, so I don't know what you do. You can't cut Evan McPherson. You're unable to. You paid him all that money. He has to be here. If you want to say that kickers have down years, sure.
They had to have had an out in that contract, right?
At some point, you have to make like half your field goals.
Just end like anything.
I don't know what you do with Evan McPherson. Zach Taylor, that seems easier to me than this situation does. Evan McPherson, you paid him all this money. I mean, say whatever you want about that Super Bowl run. He was 75% of that Super Bowl run. He was a damn important part of the Bengals going to a Super Bowl. So if you're gonna rely, or you're gonna make every decision based on that one run, okay. But my argument would be if you can't trust him to make a kick, then he shouldn't be on the team. And that's clearly where they are right now. And you can keep sending him back out there for 50-yarders, but there's not one person in this Bengals fandom that firmly believes that Evan McPherson's able to make kicks. He's missed, 4 straight 50-yarders now? Is it 3 or 4? I think it's 4 now after last night. 4 straight 50-yard misses. Can't make a 45-yarder. If it's an extra point, I feel okay about it. If it's inside 40, I feel okay. That's not a kicker you can have on your roster. You can't cut him, unfortunately. So I guess you just got to roll with it and hope he gets better. But it's pathetic.
So last night you talked about the press conference, and Joe Burrow was asked about, what do you say to Evan McPherson? Nothing, right? Like, I think everyone's exhausted with constantly having to answer for, obviously, Jermaine Burton, obviously for Cam Taylor-Britt, obviously for the defense. It's just, and now obviously McPherson. There was a clip in the first half. The defense gets off to a bad start, and there's Jermaine Pratt on the sideline just screaming like, "Let's go, let's go!" And they had highlighted the fact that he looked at Cam Taylor-Britt was like, "Let's go!" Like, come on, like they're no longer babying anybody. All right, like the whole Jermaine Burton thing. I think Joe Burrow and we heard it with Chase a few weeks ago. He said, "Look, there's nothing else I could tell him. I've talked to him. I'm not going to keep repeating myself to him every single week." I think the locker room is to the point now where everyone's just tired of the same thing every single week. I think they're tired of having to answer about the kicker not being able to kick. I think they're tired about the off-the-field distraction issues with Burton, who, of course, wasn't a distraction this week. I'm just using this as another locker room incident that they had to answer for. They're tired of answering about the defense. They're tired of answering about the offense not being able to close out games in the postgame when Jamar Chase is asked about it. He goes, "I don't know. I just play football. Go ask Zach." And for anyone that just said, everyone calls their coach by their first name, that's disrespectful. But I think it's meant to be. I think it's showing that there's major cracks, and I think now those cracks are starting to lead to leaks. And when you have literally your star player in the postgame saying, "I don't know, go ask Zach, go ask the coaches," like, because everyone's tired of everybody at this point, and we have a lot of games left. I think the bye week could not have come at a better time, because I think with all the deficiencies they have, the locker room foundation starting to crack is the biggest concern, because there's a lot of football left to be played. There is a month and a half of football left to be played, and every week it gets more and more exhausting with this team. I'm curious your guys' thoughts. Do you feel like that locker room is just starting to implode? I saw it last night in the postgame. I saw in the postgame. I think it is.
You don't come back from it. You don't. And by the way, I don't think Jamar calling Zach Taylor Zach is disrespectful. I think that's just the culture we have here. I think Zach Taylor's the cool coach.
He's not a coach. He has his hat backwards.
He's the friend.
He flips his chair around.
Listen, it's pizza time.
Yeah.
It's pizza time. You want a pizza party? I'm Zach Taylor. Come on, everybody. Let's have some fun.
Zach Taylor, Ray Romano, very similar.
I've heard they're good friends.
But I would argue that. So I was torn, because the locker, if they would have lost that game 53-6, and they would have just rolled over at halftime and just died in the second half, the locker room would be dead. It would be completely dead. It's over. I thought that was going to be I thought that was rock bottom. I thought that was worse. Losing how they did, coming all the way back and still losing because of the ineptitude of our own players again, consistently. I think they're more dead now than they were at halftime. I think they're dead. I think it's over. I think if you're going to sit here and say Zach Taylor's the culture guy, he brings good vibes, those are gone. Can't say it anymore. I think the locker room is. I think you're going to see a different Bengals here on out. I don't think this is going to be we're going to fight for the playoffs. I think we're going to roll over. Because what are we fighting for? What's the point of Joe Burrow? He can't win the MVP. The team sucks. You think he can win the MVP?
If he goes 5,050, well, how can you not?
Well, because the team won 4 games during that stretch. So I don't know what I truly don't even know what anybody's playing for. T. Higgins is playing for a contract. Unfortunately, he's already lost his money because he doesn't stay healthy. Jamar Chase has made more money this season than he could have possibly fathomed. Shout out to the Bengals for botching that entire situation. Trey Hendrickson's going to lead the league in sacks. So you play for personal pride? You play for stats? What are you playing for? Because you're not playing for the playoffs. You're not.
You got 6 games left. 3 of them are against projected playoff teams. 3 of them are not. I think we are all kind of on the same page when it comes to we're expecting 3-3. Bengals take care of the teams that are bad and lose to the teams that are good, right? Yeah. Why would we expect anything different at this point?
Yeah.
Then you're sitting at 7-10, probably picking right inside the top 15.
Yeah.
That's a joke of an organization for the level of quarterback play you're getting right now. You know how many teams would kill for this level of quarterback play? You put this level of quarterback play in Carolina, they're probably sneaking into the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's insane that this is what we're looking at for this year. Insane.
This is
games.
Go ahead.
No, real quick. You mentioned Hendrickson. I was highlighting some of those examples of things that are starting to show examples of the cracks starting to leak a lot. I mean, you had Hendrickson who literally Zach Taylor's trying to calm him down on that horse collar tackle, which was that's a legal move, by the way, when he's in the pocket. That was a bad call.
And then after the intentional grounding that would have ended the half, gave the Chargers a field goal, not a ref's guy.
Yep.
And then the pass interference when the receiver was standing out of bounds, not a ref's guy.
But no, when Hendrickson's walking off the field and Zach goes, it's the head coach going up to you to tell you to calm down, and you shove his arms away. That's you shoving your head coach out of the way, just saying, hey, there's no, you're right. They're not looking at him as the leader on the sideline. If Joe Burrow goes up to him after that at halftime and say, hey, just relax. Do you think he's shoving Joe Burrow's arms away? Do you think he's shoving Joe Burrow away? I don't. I just think that, again, not as anti-Zach as everybody, but I do think his time in Cincinnati needs to be done. It's just not. And I don't know how any of these get fixed. You talked about the 6 games left, 3 good teams, 3 bad teams. I think they're going to, they'll beat one of those good teams that we're not confident that they will, and they're going to, they're going to lose to a team that they probably shouldn't. I just think there's a roller coaster left. The problem is when Jamar and Joe have checked out, I don't know how you get to these next 6 games. I don't know what to do with that. Joe has to be the leader, right? He's expected to be the leader. I think he's just reached his leader limit. I don't know what else he could do at this point to get that locker room.
Casey asked the bad man question on Dialed In this morning.
Really?
And I'm on the same page with him. I don't know if we want to say it all the way out loud, but I think it's about 1 loss away until we actually have this conversation, right? Once the playoff hopes are officially done, I can't watch Joe Burrow be put in the turf 15 times a game for a 7-10 football team. That does you no good. If he's missing the first 2 or 3 weeks next year with broken bones or something because he's being put under the ground 6-7 times a game, he's making 40-yard bombs running for his life. And every time after Jamar Gritty's in the end zone, the camera pans back and he's writhing in pain on the midfield logo. It happens every single week at this point.
I'd like to see that conversation. Zach Taylor going to Joe. Hey, Joe, we're going to bench you. I'm sure that'll help that guy out.
That would be hilarious.
No, you can't fix anything. I mean, it's dead. My question to you guys would be, if you took away Joe Burrow from this Bengals roster, this is the worst NFL team maybe in the history of the sport. Maybe.
I don't know what they would be able to do. Honestly, round of applause, and we give Duke Tobin a lot of flack, but we're gamblers in here. When you make a parlay and you miss all 10 legs, that's just as impressive as a win, right? Duke Tobin went into the offseason with a 9-win team and a backup quarterback that missed the AFC playoffs by 1 game. He made the entire roster worse, every single position. So, in all honesty, it is just as impressive.
Good job, Duke.
You'd think you'd hit on one.
You'd think. Geno Stone might be the worst player we've ever signed.
Speaking of Geno Stone, he's actively replying to people on Twitter talking about film, about how he's doing his job.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Just about over an hour ago, he's replying to the All-22 film. I'm doing my job, LOL. You don't know ball. Great.
Maybe we don't. Maybe we don't. Maybe they're all
playing Geno, your job is to run to the opposite hash of the wide open receiver in the end zone. For sure.
You don't know ball. Man, oh man. That's just don't say anything. Just don't say why are you chatting with people, man. That's wild. That's wild. All right, let's step away for a few. When we come back, we'll take a look at the other games around the AFC North, the AFC in general, and some of the biggest games. Wild weekend of games, by the way. Great weekend of games. I know it's tough to talk about it when you feel sick to your stomach about your team right now, but a lot of great games in the AFC yesterday across the board, and we'll discuss all of that when we come back. All right, and we are back. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410, Wing AM in Dayton. All right, your guys' thoughts across take the Bengals game off the table. What was the biggest game that stood out to you yesterday that had your attention?
The other one in the AFC North. I think that's the game everyone was watching yesterday to kind of see whether or not the Steelers were real. And I think it's crazy that we had questions about a 7-2 team, but how can you blame us? They don't have the pieces on offense that really get you super excited about this squad. They're a defensive team that plays fundamental football, and that's not the 2024 brand of champions in the NFL. It's not the gaudy quarterback passing numbers. I mean, Russell Wilson is doing a fine job, but the Pittsburgh Steelers stringing together wins. He had 205 passing yards, no passing touchdowns yesterday, and they beat the Ravens 18-16. They're just a great team, and they just keep winning. I think they might be one of the most well-rounded teams in the entire league. I know you were pretty confident that they can't win a Super Bowl this year, at least a few weeks ago. Have you changed your opinion on that?
I'm wrong. I was wrong. Hand up. I'm wrong. They've won 2 games this year without scoring a touchdown.
Correct.
Bengals score 15 touchdowns a game and lose everything. They're good. Russell Wilson is an elite quarterback. Good for him. He showed up. Their defense is better than great. And you beat the Ravens, who I think are pretty damn good. Would I be surprised if the Steelers won a Super Bowl this year? No, I would not.
Who would you take if the two played again in the playoffs?
If it's in Pittsburgh, I take the Steelers.
Just wherever it is.
I still would probably take the Steelers if it's in Baltimore, but it's closer.
Fair.
I just think it's. They're damn good. I think they could actually. I think the Steelers could stop just about anybody in the NFL. Maybe except the Lions. Lions might beat them, but
game and a half lead on the Ravens now with the first half of that series. So they're certainly sitting in a really good spot to take care of the AFC North if they just beat the Bengals. Really.
Yeah. The game I had yesterday was the Bills Chiefs. You needed the Bills to win that game for the sanctity of the NFL.
That's a hot take.
You like that? You don't like that?
I think if the Chiefs won that game, there was like almost a near 0% chance they win the Super Bowl. The best chance at stopping a Patrick Mahomes three-peat is them going 17-0.
Okay. Well, they didn't. And Patrick Mahomes, I will say this is definitely the worst season he's had as a starter. There's no question about that. They're unbelievable, but it's very evident. It's not the Patrick Mahomes of the couple years ago. So
he's making unforced errors like relatively consistently.
Yeah. I mean, it's every game he has an interception.
Yeah.
Josh Allen looked fantastic. He's the MVP this year. He should be, at least in my eyes. He's carrying. By the way, that roster doesn't have a defense either. They're able to win. DeMar Hamlin is a starting defensive player on the Buffalo Bills.
He died 2 years ago.
Josh Allen's single-handedly carrying that team to the playoffs, and not just the playoffs. I mean, they have 2 losses on the year. So other coaches are able to figure it out. Other teams are able to figure it out.
I mean, if the Chiefs lose one more game, they're going to be the 1 seed.
Correct. So it's wild, man. And real quick, just to talk about the playoff picture, like I said coming into this week that there'd be a chance if the Broncos and Colts both lost, both of them won, and not only did they both win, I'd say they both looked good.
Right.
Anthony Richardson looked solid, and then you have the Denver Broncos, who I don't understand, and my brain won't let me rationalize that team being a playoff team. It won't rationalize me seeing Bo Nix as a quarterback that's able to win games in the NFL. Somehow they do it. They beat a team yesterday that I think 2 guys in this room think is a solid team. They blew their face in.
He's turning me into a believer, man.
He blew their face off. I mean, it was 41-6?
38-6.
I mean,
28-33, 307, 4 touchdowns against a Falcons secondary that is not arguably, certainly at the top of the league, towards the top of the league.
They were one blocked field goal away from already clinching it. So I think the playoffs are pretty much set at this point. I think how you see it right now is how it will be come whatever that is, January. The Broncos are going to be in it. and I think the Chargers are going to have that 6 seed. So
Currently, the Chargers have the 5 seed.
okay, then they'll have the 5 seed, and then who will have the 6 seed?
Right now, the Ravens have the 6 seed.
Okay. No, the Chargers will get the 6. Ravens will still.
Ravens have played one more game than the Chargers. Chargers 7-3, Ravens 7-4. So still a lot of buys and stuff to work out as we get down the line.
Yeah, playoff picture's over for the Bengals.
I agree. I don't think the Colts, I liked what I saw at AR, certainly better than it's looked at any other point this year over this weekend. I think maybe the pulling him was something that worked because he was over, 60-something% of his passes, which we haven't seen even in college. So I do think that hole's just a little too deep. I think the Broncos are playing too good at football. The Dolphins are ahead of the Bengals now, and we were laughing about them being in the hunt. But I don't think that they're going to have a chance either already with 6 losses. Bengals would have to win out. Yeah, it's set. The most interesting thing to watch the rest of the way in the AFC is who's going to win the AFC North.
Mike Tomlin doesn't lose seasons, and he hasn't had a quarterback in 5 years. So everybody else is able to figure it out. There's one coach that's unable to figure it out.
And you look at the playoff picture too. So even with what you saw from, I know Jake, you just said you're starting to become a Bo believer after yesterday, but that's not moving the needle for you at all with Bo. I know you said it's hard to fathom seeing them win with Bo, but when he has a game like that yesterday, Bo Nix was fantastic yesterday. Like all of a sudden, Sean Payton pushing the right buttons over in Denver. I wasn't buying them either at 5-3. I was rolling my eyes at that. I had them at the top of my fraudulent list, but they might be for real because that defense is for real, and there's a pattern. I mean, if you start to look at the teams that are overcoming their adversities, of course, it's obviously teams with great defenses. You know, the Chiefs are as good as they are, yes, because they have Patrick Mahomes, but he hasn't been elite this season, but their defense has got him over the hump. The Bills, not a great defense, but average middle-of-the-line defense, and they're making just enough plays to get there. Pittsburgh is winning a division that we thought they would finish in last in and not even finish above 500. Defense, and more defense. The Chargers, you saw it last night, 7-3 now are the Chargers. And yes, they have Justin Herbert. Yes, they have capable offensive weapons, but it's because of that defense. At the end of the day, I know you want to get away from the Bengals, but like that has to be this thing that they are focusing the most on because we act like, man, I don't know how this team is doing it. I don't know how Pittsburgh does it. I don't know how the Chargers are doing it. I don't know how Denver's doing it. They're doing it because of the defense right now, and that's the mold. That's the secret sauce, if you will. Defense, and more defense. Like you can't be any more glaring for the Bengals at this point when you look at the blueprint for the teams ahead of them in the AFC at this point.
Yeah, and you're losing your number 2 wide receiver probably and your interior of your offensive line, and those are 2 major concerns already. So you need 8 pieces on defense, the number 2 wide receiver, 2 guards, and a center. 2 corners, a safety, probably running back 2, probably a wide receiver 3, honestly.
No, we have Khalil Herbert.
Well, he's running back 4.
No, Khalil Herbert, he'll be good.
Okay, Zach Moss's neck gets fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean this is what I mean. Like we can talk about the team needs, and as I part of why I was up so late last night is I did start looking at big boards. It's the first mock draft I saw had us taking Ashton Jeanty at 10. I would riot in the streets. If you watch the Bengals play this season, you pick top 10, you take a running back, we'd have problems in Cincinnati. But I digress. When it comes to the big board this year, it's going to be so frustrating with this Bengals roster because there are so many holes at so many must-get positions. And it's just, what do? We need to pick 10 times in the first round. That's the only way it can help.
I don't trust them to make a draft pick either. That's the biggest
They
problem.
don't have scouts. How are they supposed to pick? They don't know who the players are.
It's the biggest problem we have is that even our lost seasons don't result in good draft picks. So and we're gonna win games. Like you're not gonna lose. They're too bad. They're too bad to make the playoffs. They're too good to lose out. So now you're in purgatory. The Bengals are in purgatory.
That's the other side of the protect Joe coin.
And there's no way out. The Bengals are in a worse spot right now than they've been in a long time, in a very, very long time. Can you pay Jamar Chase? Because if you pay Jamar Chase,
do you want to?
If you pay Jamar Chase, which, by the way, you have to, if you pay him, how much money do we have for next year? Because
let me ask, do you? Do you have to?
I do not think it's an option. Not with how this season's gone. Everyone will be out on this team if you don't pay Jamar Chase.
If you don't pay Jamar Chase, there is no team.
But look at these teams that are having success above them that hit not rebuild buttons, but reset buttons. Reset buttons. The Chargers, everyone thought it was absolutely crazy to give up every offensive weapon that they had. And they did that to be able to set themselves up on defense and average, even out that. I know no one's going to like my take on this, and that's fine. And I'm not.
If we had Jim Harbaugh, I wouldn't think it would be necessary to sign Jamar Chase.
but at this point, and even if I say, okay, you talk about the draft picks and having to address all of these, man, we need 100 first-round draft picks. The solution's staring you in the face, and that's Jamar Chase.
If you don't pick Jamar Chase, you have a bigger problem. If you don't pick Jamar Chase, you have to draft a wide receiver in the first round.
And then that wide receiver has to be good.
Why do you have to pick one in the first round?
What did the Bills do as soon as they left Stephon Diggs go? They drafted a wide receiver in the first round. What did the Chiefs do as soon as they left Tyreek go? They drafted a wide receiver in the first round.
There's no reason for everyone to get super pissed at this take. We watch teams all the time have to make tough decisions like this to try to fill their draft pick stock. They have to be able to get as many. You have so many holes. You guys keep bringing it up. The only way to address all of that on a team won't spend money in the offseason, and if they do, it's going to go to their wide receiver, so they won't spend money on anything else. Then you're going to have to rely on them just using the draft picks that they have to try to address those holes. Well, the more first round and second round draft picks you have, that's the quickest way to dig yourselves out of this. I know it's not ideal.
Adding holes?
If Justin Herbert can win football games with no talent at wide receiver, if Josh Allen could do it, if all these quarterbacks could win without elite wide receiver talent, why is it crazy? You guys say Joe Burrow.
The Chargers took a wide receiver in the first round last year.
That's fantastic, and he ain't shit. So I don't understand.
So the Bengals are going to have to take a wide receiver in the first round, and if he's not good, they're in a worse spot.
That's a beep.
No, by the way, Quentin Johnson wasn't good. He wasn't good.
That's what I'm saying. And they still had to use the first-round pick because they let their other weapons leave. And they screwed that room over because he hasn't been good.
Fantastic. If you keep Keenan Allen and everybody else that they had on the offense, because, man, we can't get rid of Justin Herbert's weapons. Oh, my God. Now you're not stopping anybody, and now you're doing what the Cincinnati Bengals are doing. Oh, my God, we got a great quarterback putting up great numbers, but we can't beat good teams. You can't beat good teams. So this idea that we have to bring Jamar Chase back and you have no resources to fix any of these other problems, how do you fix those problems?
Putting this Jamar Chase and 30-year-old Keenan Allen on the same level is insane.
It's not insane. It's not even in the same ballpark. When was the last
time? There's one receiver in the league you can compare to Jamar Chase. He plays in Minnesota.
When was the last time a franchise has let a top 5 wide receiver just go?
Quite literally.
I don't know. How about the team that just won the last 2 Super Bowls? How about
with Travis Kelce? With the best tight end of all time?
They had another option.
Stop with the Travis Kelce erasure. That's the craziest part of the whole thing.
You are acting. Okay, Travis Kelce's fantastic, but Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, that trumps everyone else with all these elite wide receivers?
That's an elite weapon. If the Bengals let Jamar Chase go, they do not have an elite weapon.
Then go get one. But
so you have to use a pick in the first round on a wide receiver then?
Yes, and he's cheaper, and now you have more money to go fix issues on the defensive end.
I want to use picks on defense, not on wide receivers. We have a damn good wide receiver.
How has that worked so far?
Well, you have to be better at drafting, don't you, Kenner?
Well, gee, no. Oh, God. You guys, your mentality with this team, you guys are the only ones that make the dumbest excuses for this team, and it's absolutely insane to me.
Acting like letting Jamar Chase walk would benefit us in any way, shape, or form is an asinine take. Ass a 10 and ass 11.
That's fine. You can keep saying ass all you want. It ain't going to make your point any better because the bottom line is you bring Jamar Chase back, it's just going to be the same thing over and over and over.
You have to hit on picks. We know that's the problem.
Okay, hit on your picks, but the best way to hit on your picks is the more picks you have, the better chance you have of hitting on some of those.
So when you hit on picks, you let him walk.
I mean,
you hit on Jamar.
Thus far, huh?
Right, and we shouldn't have. That's why we're in this situation.
Kenner, they have 3 good. They have 3 good players.
You want to let one of them go,
and you're going to let the one go. Then what is their identity? But who
would want to play here?
Kenner, here's the difference between all these. You have Andy Reid letting go of Tyreek Hill. I'll take Andy Reid. Whenever he's got cooking up behind the scenes. I'll take Mike Tomlin letting go of Deontay Johnson. I'll let everybody, all of these coaches. I'll let Jim Harbaugh let go of Keenan Allen. All of these, the common denominator is they have people behind the scenes
coaches
that are able to do their job at a high level. The Bengals do not. Zach Taylor is a terrible head coach. Terrible. He is a bottom 10 head coach in the NFL.
No, he's
not.
Is. Stop with that. That's
he
stupid.
is.
He is.
No,
he's not. He
is.
There's 20 coaches in the NFL.
Kenner, what other head?
20 coaches in the NFL.
Kenner, me saying he's the great head coach, but that's so freaking lazy just to put it all on the head coach. It really is.
Kenner, what other head coach? Kenner, what other head coach loses with this team? What other head coach?
You think there's under 20 head coaches in the league that have a better record?
Do you think Andy Reid without a defense wins all the games he is? No.
I think Andy Reid's much better than 4-7 here.
I think Andy Reid has.
No,
yeah, they have more wins.
At least 2 or 3 wins.
How? Is Andy Reid going to go out and tackle people?
No, but Andy Reid's
not an offensive scheme that doesn't score 16 points against the Patriots.
Waffle House menu and go out there and tackle people? No, he won't.
You wouldn't have lost week 1 to the Patriots, and then you're still alive sitting here
Zach
after that
Taylor's
loss.
not great. He may not be the solution, but to sit there and act like all their problems are the head coach just is not right. That coach got you to a Super Bowl. That coach got you to back-to-back AFC championships. But now all of a sudden the guy doesn't know how to coach, and maybe it's just because the roster's not as good as those rosters that got to that point. You're letting everyone else off the hook and putting it all on a guy that really has a roster that's bad. We've talked about it. And Duke Tobin's the biggest, probably the Bengals organization, the way they run everything from the top down is the biggest problem in all of this.
Correct.
And it's not going to get better. But to sit there and say, hey,
if it doesn't get better, then you're screwed for the next 20 years anyway.
So I'll take the offense with.
I'll take Jamar Chase.
Kenner,
that's great. Yeah, I'm stupid, by the way, but look how miserable you guys are today with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. But yeah, me trying to come up with a solution to fix it, I'm the crazy one.
Yes, with that solution, you are the crazy one.
Jamar Chase gets you the most first and second round draft picks back to help try to fix the problem as quickly as possible. Josh Allen wins football games without wide receivers. Patrick Mahomes is doing it right now. Justin Herbert's doing it. We're watching quarterbacks that are the best quarterbacks in the NFL do it. You want me to be impressed with a guy that puts up big numbers, that has T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, while I'm watching better quarterbacks do it with no talent? I'll take those guys any day of the week. You have to give this team a chance. You have to give Joe Burrow to prove that $55 million is not just for his skill set, but his ability to elevate talent around him. I don't want to hear that, he didn't win because, the T. Higgins has been out injured and blah, blah, blah. I'm watching all these other quarterbacks win without talent at wide receiver. Joe Burrow could do it too. Take the talent of Jamar Chase, utilize it into draft picks, and help fill as many holes on this roster as quickly as possible. If not, great. Enjoy having the quarterback that leads the league in yards and touchdowns, and enjoy having the team that has the wide receiver that leads the league in yards and touchdowns. And I'm going to enjoy sitting back watching your team continue to lose ball games because, hey, you're an exciting offense but can't stop anybody on defense. But I'm crazy for trying to come up with a solution to help fix it when you guys don't. What are your solutions? How do you fix it? You re-sign Jamar Chase, then what? You have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and then what? What's the fix?
The same way every single one of those contenders you listed has fixed their rebuilds. They've hit in the late rounds of the draft. Every single one of them.
That's hope. That's just hope.
That's all we got. That's all we got. We've had the same GM since 1999. We have owners that won't spend money. All we got's hope.
Okay.
Here's the thing, Kenner. I might have agreed with your Jamar Chase take if, Jermaine Burton showed any signs of flashes. The two guys that are getting ready to walk, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, are literally the only two weapons on this team right now. The other guys probably don't even make a practice squad on the other teams that you mentioned. Khalil Shakir is a pretty good receiver. Keon Coleman, before he got hurt, he looked pretty good. Dalton Kincaid on the tight end. Those are some weapons, right? James Cook, pretty good. On the Chiefs side, you got Isaiah Pacheco. You had Travis Kelce. They've brought in guys like Juju. They brought in talent.
Oh, Juju!
The talent
Juju
on the
Smith.
Bengals.
Wow.
The talent on the Bengals is borderline not even a practice squad player on those teams.
Juju be the Bengals wide receiver 3.
Exactly.
Pretty easily.
Pretty easily. And then if those two guys would walk, I think to me, you have to sign Jamar Chase. You can't let another talent walk out of this building because it's just setting a precedent that you're never going to sign guys that you bring in that you drafted and developed. You just have to. After that, I'm looking at cutting guys that don't do a lick on this team.
Yes.
And those guys, there's a lot of them. And that can release another $30 million. And if you get that, you at least have roughly 40 to 50 to play with next season. So for me, I think there's still hope in getting players in this building, but it's going to require them to start changing. They have to start giving contracts that guarantee more money past the first year or two. And they got to bring in guys that are going to make a difference. This year, this last offseason, they weren't even in the competition for the top defensive tackles or the safeties or anything like that. They brought in guys that barely cost them anything, and it cost them big time this year. Sheldon Rankins hasn't even hardly seen the field. He's been hurt, but he was never going to add that level of added pressure that we needed for this pass rush to be any good. Geno Stone has been graded one of the worst safeties in the league. So for me, it's not only have they just swung and miss on draft picks, it's been picking free agents too. So your route of letting Chase walk, you're asking a lot of this front office to make good decisions there too. You're asking them to get guys in this building that they're just not going to be able to get because they refuse to go get the top talent. So I think you got to keep the talent in this building. You got to keep Jamar Chase, and then go from there. You got to start making tough decisions, cutting Sam Hubbard, cutting guys like Kappa, making those tough decisions. But it's for the betterment of the team to get more money and be able to make more swings than just the Jamar Chase sign. So.
Well, I did not have in my notes today to really push the agenda of trading Jamar Chase, but when you guys were saying earlier that there's no solution to this, I said there's a solution. It's just not going to be the solution that they go. I know that they're not going to move on from Jamar Chase, but at the same time, keeping him, I don't know how you move on from the issues you're having now. I don't, based on everything you guys have said, you have no faith that this front office could draft or develop or anything like that. So it's like, your take accomplishes nothing, and my take accomplishes nothing based on those same standards. So we're all just walking in circles at this point.
Unless they clean house, that's the difference. Yeah. That's why we all want to clean house.
Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. What can we talk about that will make everyone at least semi-happy? Want to make fun of the Browns? Can we make fun of the Browns?
I saw some positive news. I saw Jonathan India's on the trade block. That cheered me up a little bit this morning.
I guess we can
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. We'll talk about the Reds. Yeah. Oh, there you go. We'll be right back. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Kissett with you here. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. You talked about it. Nick Martinez, he didn't. He called the bluff, I guess. He accepted the qualifying offer. $22 million. We talked about the TV deal last week, Reds TV. All right, they're partnering up with, MLB Network, of course. They're going to be distributing all of the Reds games. We talked about the viewing experience and how great that's going to be for Reds fans, no doubt. But also, with going that route, we knew that they were going to lose about 40% of the TV revenue that was going to help put them in position to spend, we hope. Again, that was the expectation, right? Like, we don't know that they were actually going to do that. But now they have a built-in excuse not to spend money. But I do know that, when one of the press releases announcing their new TV deal, that they said they were expected to be about at the same spend, if not a little more than last year, which was about at $101 million. Well, now with this qualifying offer that Nick Martinez accepted, it puts him right back at that 101 number. Can we expect them to spend any more? Who knows? I like Nick Martinez. He was great. I love that I guess he's on the roster next season. But, man, the question is Nick Martinez and what he brings to the table at 21 or 22 mil, whatever it was, does that suit the Reds? Are the Reds better off with that 22 million going to him versus addressing getting an outfielder or getting a big power bat or something along those lines? I'm curious your guys' thoughts. When you saw that he accepted it, your reaction was what?
I think we're kind of on the same page with this.
This is a winning baseball move for teams that win championships. Teams that win the Atlanta Braves, the Dodgers, the Yankees. Teams that have had success, the Rangers. Teams that have had success in the postseason recently, or maybe all time, they sign guys like Nick Martinez. They sign good pitchers, available pitchers that can help your roster. No matter the price, no matter the position, they sign the best available. The Reds did that. They signed Nick Martinez, one of the best available free agents. He's a solid player. He was, we can make it as a joke, but the team clearly likes him. They voted him, team MVP for pitchers? Pitcher of the Year award for Nick Martinez? It's a good baseball move if you're going to spend more.
Yes.
If you do not spend more, if this is the only significant move of this offseason, then it's the worst possible move that they could have made. It's a horrible move if they do not spend money. If they decide to use this as some momentum, you spend some more, you bring in that outfielder, you're bringing the quarter infielder, then it's a great move. It all depends on what excuse the front office wants to use. If they want to use the excuse that we don't have any money because the TV deal went away, but we're going to pay Nick Martinez a reliever, a half reliever, half starter, makes me sick. But they can prove me wrong. They can go out and they can say, you know what? We're going to go out and we're going to spend some more money to help this signing, to enhance the roster even more. And if that's the case, couldn't be happier for this. Next year, the Reds, obviously bringing back Nick Martinez, very positive thing, at least in my eyes, as we sit here on November 18th. A very good thing.
Reds baseball team is better with Nick Martinez in its bullpen / flex starter than not. Objectively.
100%.
He's great at that position, one of the best in the whole league at his position. It's a very unique position. And I think that's kind of why the $20 million price tag had a lot of fans up in arms about it. But I do think it was a bluff. I think the Reds didn't expect him to, wanted to get that pick that you get if he signs elsewhere with the qualifying offer. And Nick Martinez took the $20 million instead of the less money multi-year offers that I think the Reds expected him to take. So we're here. We're stuck with him if you want to use that terminology. But I think he's going to be a really good player for this team. And that's the tough part about being a Reds fan, though, is when you have $20 million on a bullpen arm, you better hope he's good because you know he's going to be one of the most expensive players on that roster. The Reds have to go out and make other moves. If a qualifying offer to a flex bullpen arm is the biggest move the Reds make this offseason, it's going to hurt really, really bad. Worse than if you would have just let him walk and did nothing.
Correct.
Yeah, they like I said, it's not a bad thing that he's on the roster. It's just what that deal means at this point for what limitations or restrictions they're going to have. And like, let's be clear. Let's say he didn't accept that and took a deal elsewhere. Obviously, they get that compensatory pick that you guys mentioned, but like, it's not guaranteed. You know, I acted like, oh man, that $20 million, that could have been used elsewhere. Who's to say that they would have used that $20 million elsewhere? Like, we don't know. We're all speculating. We're hoping that the arrival of Terry Francona is signaling that, oh man, this team's going to go all in, and whatever all in means, is different opinion by opinion. But I don't know if this squashes that. I don't know if this squashes the idea that they're going to spend more this offseason, or if it signals that they are. Maybe if we're going to be positive about it, maybe it's like, hey, we knew we needed to get him back here. We know what he brings to the table, and now we can go fix other problems with this. I don't know, but history tells us not to get our hopes up too much. But yeah, so I think we all agree. He called the bluff, and it backfired on the Reds. Is that kind of the general opinion here?
Yeah, and we'll see how much it backfires as the season progresses. If he does exactly what he did last year, it's not going to backfire at all. The Reds are going to luck into a damn good arm. Yep. But that is definitely the concern. I think really at this point, sitting here and looking at how the Reds offseason is shaking out just from the Francona signing to the qualifying offer and even the muddy waters with that, I just don't get the feeling Reds fans are going to be thrilled going into next year. I think we're going to easily be able to talk ourselves into a lot of these young guys taking a step and Terry Francona, but just the way a lot of this stuff has gone already this offseason, the TV deal breaking down, the Nick Martinez accepted the qualifying offer 2 weeks ago and then he just didn't sign it. It all just seems weird. I think the biggest moves, if any big moves the Reds make the rest of this offseason will be through trades. I just don't expect major free agency signings to come and be the home run thing that we expect this offseason. I don't think like a Santander or Teoscar Hernandez or anything like that's coming to Cincinnati. It's just not my expectation with how this offseason is going to go or what I've seen for the last, however many years. And maybe that's the Bengals. I thought they changed and they're beating me back down. So why would the Reds change? I can't get ahead of my skis.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I got hope. So it's a good signing as long as that's not the only signing. That's all you can say about it. It's a good sign because the Dodgers would have made this move. Dodgers don't care about money. So, I know there's the quote from Moneyball. I like to quote Moneyball every time I can. The Billy Bean's in the room. If we play like the Yankees in here, we're going to lose the Yankees out there. Well, that's great, but Moneyball lost too. So, if we can spend money while we can, spend enough money and build a competitive roster. That's at least where I am. I don't have any hope for next season. Good luck to them. I'm going to cheer them on. Root for the home team.
Right.
And
if they don't win, it's a shame.
And that's correct. And we'll see if the Reds are at Cracker Jacks. And we'll see if the Reds are able to have a better year than they did this year, which I hope they do. But
I love all our wonderful friends in the chat, and they're in the same boat we're in. And just to kind of put in perspective for everyone how poverty of a franchise this is.
Yeah.
Because I agree with them, which is how we know we're all poverty franchise fans. They're listing the guys we're getting off IL as major free agency additions this offseason.
Good.
Just Matt McClain is the biggest free agency signing we could get. True. Yeah. Man, what a rough spot to be in. Off-season champions about Game 3 of the World Series, and we're talking about IL candidates as big free agent signings. Woof.
Got to do what you got to do. And so you guys talked about, obviously, free agency isn't going to be where they're super aggressive, most likely. But trades could potentially be. I know that it was reported over the weekend. C. Trent, Ken Rosenthal, and others had put it out. And I know Chatterbox had shared it on the account that Reds and Royals have discussed a trade of Jonathan India for Brady Singer. Now, the Athletic, C. Trent and Ken Rosenthal, as we talked about, reporting that, and that was, talked about over the weekend. Again, Brady Singer, 9-13, 3.71 ERA, and 32 starts last season. Singer has 2 years of control left and is expected to earn about $8.8 million next season as far as that goes. Now, the reason that caught me by surprise, not by surprise, because India being moved it shouldn't be a surprise, but I've leaned more towards the idea that the Reds really don't want to move him if they don't have to, just because of constantly how much they put out there, what he means to that clubhouse. But right off the bat, the first trade rumor of the offseason, Jonathan India, and trying to bring pitching back into the game. You guys surprised, by the way, everything's been pitching. You go get Terry Francona, get the Nick Martinez deal done. First trade rumor we hear, it's for a pitcher most likely. We keep acting like they're going to go get an outfielder, they're going to go get a bat, but it's like all the activity thus far, it's all leading to pitching at this point, something that we thought was a strength of this team last year.
There were some updates on that trade this morning, just before we get into it. Jim Bowden from MLB Radio tweeted that kind of has stalled since Nick Martinez has signed his qualifying offer. The Brady Singer trade was, to offset that if Nick Martinez were to leave. The Reds do think they have a need for a pitcher, but the India for Singer trade was a contingency plan in case Martinez opted out. Bowden continued reporting that the Reds are indeed shopping Jonathan India, but their ideal return now is a corner outfielder or everyday third baseman.
My bad on that. Good reporting. My bad. I didn't see that
this morning. That's what I was talking about kind of when I just dropped India at the end of last segment. The shift here for, okay, we got Nick Martinez. Now let's move and get a corner outfielder or a third baseman. What have we been sitting here asking for the whole time? Corner outfielder or a third baseman. Let's do this thing.
Listen, I would have done that India trade.
I would have too. I love Singer.
As soon as I heard it. So I would have rather had that trade done than re-sign Nick Martinez. But
for sure.
Whatever, we'll take Nick Martinez. Jonathan India, if you believe in Matt McClain, has no future as a Cincinnati Red. I mean, he just doesn't. I love Jonathan India. I think people were too quick to write him off, but we know who Jonathan India is at this point. I've seen enough. He's a 250 hitter. He gets on base maybe 330. If you're lucky, he'll hit 20 home runs. If you're the luckiest person in the world, he'll hit 20 home runs for you. I'd trade him tomorrow.
Yeah, that Singer return, though, it almost kind of shows that, they probably weren't counting on Martinez to sign that. Singer would have been the way to address that hole with Martinez leaving. Now you got a $22 million pitcher when you could have had an $8 million pitcher. Of course, the production would not have been as highly, executed as what you probably get with Martinez. Fingers crossed, nonetheless. But no, that's good to hear. So the Reds are actively looking for a bat and an outfielder, as we all figured would be the case.
As soon as I say third baseman, everyone in the chat, are we giving up on Marte? Are we giving up on Marte?
Third baseman, sorry. Yeah.
What do you think? Is that the thing you're reading into that?
Well, I'd like to win games, so I think Marte does not give us the best chance to win baseball games.
Are you just sending him straight down, play minors, or are you trying to find somewhere else to fit him in the lineup?
He can be a utility guy, but the whole debate about that is, well, if he doesn't play every day, what's the point? Well, I'd argue that you want the good players up on the Major League roster. I don't care how many games they play. We have Ellie De La Cruz and we have Spencer Steer. Those are the two players who I know can play baseball of these young rookies. Matt McClain, do I believe that he could be the best second baseman we've ever seen? Sure. But he's got to stay healthy. And until I see that he's healthy, I don't know how to analyze Matt McClain. There's no way to rationally think about Matt McClain until I see he plays 162 games in a season. That's the only way. So I believe in Matt. I believe in Spencer Steer. I believe in Ellie De La Cruz. Those are who I got. Outside of that, everybody's still got to earn their part while also the Reds being competitive. You have Terry Francona for 3, maybe 4 years. You have Ellie De La Cruz for what, 4 more years? If you're lucky, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, before you'd have to make a franchise-defining move to sign him long-term, which they will not. So, yeah, I want to win now. Noelvi Marte does not give the Reds the best chance to win now. That is proven.
All right, well, that wraps it up for us on the radio side. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. How about the biggest loser of the weekend, Netflix? Shout out to Netflix.
Didn't even get to talk about that.
No,
What a
the biggest loser of the weekend is the American people.
Everybody fell for it. I fell
two
for it.
NFL games on that sucker in a month. Two NFL games.
my mom texted me Friday night, and she's like, "Hey, we're gonna have some people over to watch the fight." I'm like, "You watch fights? Have you watched a fight before?" They're like, "No, but this sounds fun." I'm like, okay. So my mom texted me at like 8 o'clock, like, "Hey, when's this fight start?" "Oh, you don't know, do you? Fights they have undercards." So this isn't starting until 1 a.m.
Oh, no.
So by the time this fight started, our entire house was filled with sleeping people. Everybody was asleep. Netflix truly put on the worst broadcast I've ever seen. There hasn't been a worse broadcast ever.
I left the Netflix app to go watch Antonio Brown's live stream of the Jumbotron because it was better.
So did I. I had to click out of the Netflix stream, I want to say 100 times, just to hope it reloads. And when it did reload, the screen was the most blurry thing I've ever seen. So Netflix scammed us all. Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. We all knew that fight was going to be trash, and it was. Mike Tyson, trash. Jake Paul, trash. Jake Paul is a scam artist. He is a scam artist. Good for him. He's a hell of a marketer. He can market anything. He can sell you anything. But damn, can he not fight? I mean, he didn't throw a punch.
Us Jake Paul haters might get our wish.
He didn't throw a punch.
Someone called him out after the fight.
I did see that.
Artur Beterbiev called him out after the fight. Current top 5 pound-for-pound boxer in the entire world, said he wants to put all 4 of his unified belts on the line against Jake Paul in a real championship boxing match because he's done watching Jake Paul beat up on people that he shouldn't be fighting. I love it. He goes, "I'm going to knock you out with the belts on the line, and then we're done with this whole charade."
It needs to end because boxing, by the way, biggest joke in sports. This is boxing. That was boxing. I don't know the name of the 2 girls that fought. That was boxing.
Amanda Serrano won that fight too.
That was boxing.
Robbed her.
Shout out to Katie Taylor was her name, maybe.
No shout out.
I bet on her. I won that one. That was the only good fight of the night. That was it. Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. It was the worst fight of all time. There hasn't been a worse fight ever.
The reason I wasn't disappointed is because I didn't have high expectations of it being a legitimate fight. It was a spectacle. What I was actually surprised about is that they filled up Jerry's World. They filled that place up. And I think a lot of people knew it wasn't going to be like a legitimate fight. I think we were kind of maybe like tuning in, curious, hoping. I think, look, everything you said about Jake Paul is true. Everyone hates Jake Paul. And I think that's why everyone tuned in. Not expecting Mike Tyson to win or really thinking that he was actually going to come out on top, but just hoping that maybe, just maybe, Mike Tyson will have one fast swing left in him to knock Jake Paul out. That's what everyone tuned in for. But I just don't. I mean, the celebrities that were in attendance. I mean, you had that Friday night, and then the real fight on Saturday, by the way, which we'll get to that coming up here in a moment. But no, like that was just good. You say Jake Paul's a con artist. I don't know. I think he puts all his cards out on the table. We continue to get. It's one thing if that's his first fight that he's duped everybody, but he's done this multiple times, and people keep filling up arenas and they keep rushing to the streams and whatever pay-per-view it's on at this point. But yeah, I thought it was absolutely hilarious. Antonio Brown just had about 6.5 million people tuned in. By the way, that's illegal. What he did, not supposed to do that. But again, Netflix, everybody else, they didn't care. They're like, you're kind of bailing us out here. We're going to leave you alone. Absolutely insane that 6.5 million people.
Higher average viewership on Antonio Brown's live stream of the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight than the 2023 NBA playoffs.
Seriously?
Yeah. 5.8 in the NBA, 6.2.
And by the way, I'm not like Jake Paul. Like Jake Paul is a very good scam artist.
We are to blame.
You are,
the American consumer is to blame.
You're right.
He's very good at it. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You can be a car salesman and be a scumbag, but be a very good car salesman. Right? Jake Paul is a very scumbag, very good car salesman. And the car that he's selling is his shitty boxing career. So we all buy it and we all watch it. And time after time, you're let down. So did he throw that? Did Tyson throw that fight?
I don't know. I saw a lot of things.
I saw the contract stuff that said like he can't knock him out. Like if
that's language in a lot of exhibition fights.
He loses millions if you knock him out. Yada yada yada. That was tough.
Yeah, he's a 6-year-old man. We were hoping would just have one last knockout power right hook on him. Maybe that was a little.
He looks so old too.
Very old.
He looked the oldest I've ever seen a person look.
One thing I couldn't help but notice when I was watching. No glaring sun early in the day. They added curtains on all the windows in AT&T Stadium for the boxing match or the undercard that was in the afternoon. So no sun played a factor in that one.
So they
didn't have to tear the stadium down.
They didn't have to demolish it. Okay, good.
Did not have to demolish the stadium.
Real quick, super chats that I forgot to get to. Justin Edgel, anyone over 40 is done with this organization. If they aren't, I'll just say they're dumb because I don't want to read the other part. Colton Melman, $5 super chat. We are a non-serious franchise. Same GM for 25 years. No scouting department. The front office is a joke. Spend money to make money. Thank you guys for putting those in. I'm sorry I didn't read them earlier. Real quick, Cool Throne. If you want to steal a whole bit, Cool Throne. How about Sydney Thomas, Jacob? Your good friend.
Yeah, talented young lady. Put up a good fight this weekend.
Yeah, she did. By far the biggest winner of the weekend.
Two biggest winners.
Sorry, but you guys, my computer's frozen. I can hear you. I can't see anything right now. I'm not really sure.
All good.
That's good.
Okay. I'm back now. It's back. But
all right.
Nonetheless. All right, let's end on this. I want to go back to our argument from earlier, but no arguments.
Do you feel bad do you feel bad that Casey has to edit out his shit?
I think I said goddamn earlier too. I think I don't remember.
I don't even know where you said goddamn.
Shit. No. Earlier. So to reset. Let's reset. I want to close out with this because I don't want people actually thinking that I'm advocating that they need to trade Jamar Chase. Earlier, you just mentioned what are the options? How do they do this? There's just no way out. When I heard that, I said, well, I think that there is a way out. It just won't be a popular one. And when you do look around the league, there are quarterbacks who have had their weapons taken away to allow younger talent to come in to see what you have, to kind of hit the reset button a bit, not rebuild, but reset. It's not ideal to move on from Jamar Chase, not by any means, but if there truly is no other options to help do this, you know that he would give you the biggest return in draft picks, first and second round draft picks, and that's, of course, going to be the quickest way, assuming you hit on those picks, to dig yourselves out of this hole. That's what the Chargers are relying on. That's what the Bills are relying on. That's what the Chiefs have had to rely on, and that's why I continue to bring those up, not to devalue what Joe Burrow has done to this point, but to say, hey, this idea that it can't happen, it has happened. Not every situation is exactly the same. I get that. But I know it's crazy to say that, man, trading Jamar is an option. It is. There's a lot of possibilities. It won't happen. But that's why I was just saying, hey, the one option that actually would give you the most picks to put you in a position to try to dig yourself out of this would be that scenario. Obviously, I knew it wasn't going to be a popular one, but I said it calmer. We don't need to argue.
Kenner, I'm not even saying that that's completely wrong. There's a common denominator that you're not factoring in. Sure, if I had a trustworthy front office and organization that's had a history of success and winning, sure, we could trade Jamar Chase. I would trust them to find a wide receiver. I would trust them to have other talent available, but I don't have that. That's the only difference with that. Andy Reid, Sean McDermott, Mike Tomlin, everybody else has a competent coach and a pretty damn solid, well-run organization that you threw in there. I think that's what you're missing here. I think that the Bengals coaching staff, and whether or not you agree with this, and people don't like to agree with it, Zach Taylor's a bottom 10 coach. If you had to redraft coaches, Kenner, you don't take Zach Taylor in the top 20. You do not. There are 20 better coaches in the NFL than Zach Taylor, and that's not even it's not even a bad thing. It's just that's the fact. He's not a very good head coach. No other head coach loses as much as he has with this team. The roster is a joke. I don't blame yesterday's game on Zach Taylor at all. That's not a Zach Taylor loss. It's just a bad team loss. It's a bad team. Now it's because Zach Taylor is a part of the coaching staff. I think it's a microcosm of this entire season. But if you can trust the Bengals front office. And we play this. How many times we play this game? We just after the cameras cut off. Reed will come in here, and I think like 100 times this year. Let's just rattle off draft picks that have been hits or misses over the last 10 years.
9 out of 41 hits under Zach Taylor, and that's counting guys like Cordell Volson as hits.
So then you're banking on Zach Taylor and the coaching staff, front office, whoever the hell's in charge, to find an adequate substitute for the best wide receiver in the NFL. There is none. There is no replacement for Jamar Chase. And if there was, Kenner, we do not have the front office or staff or personnel to find that replacement. That's the only disconnect. If we were the Chiefs and we just won 3 Super Bowls, sure, trade him. I don't care. Trade him. Let's get a good wide receiver because that's an organization that knows what the hell they're doing. This organization doesn't know what the hell they're doing.
With Zach Taylor as the head coach of this football team, we are having earnest conversations as a fan base about whether or not to take a wide receiver early in the first round with extending Jamar Chase, because we don't have faith in Zach Taylor and his scheme to be consistently good with just one elite weapon. We think you need two. And then if you let Jamar Chase go, you're going to have to get two, or you just get a new head coach. And if we get a new head coach, then maybe he is an Andy Reid. Maybe Ben Johnson is the next god. Yeah. And the Bengals actually do fork out $12, $15 million and sign him as the most expensive coach in the league to come coach in Cincinnati. And then I would have the conversation about letting Jamar Chase go. But I don't think Zach Taylor is going to be anywhere but that sideline for the next year, maybe two. And I think as long as he's here, you got to give him everything you can give him to succeed. And I think the only way you do that is you keep Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow here and you build around those two.
Kenner.
So close.
Kenner, we made it.
We did so well.
Kenner, we made it to the end.
Kenner, we love you. Kenner, it was a good day.
It was a good day, Kenner.
I only hate you for about 10 minutes a day, but after that, we're good.
Is that the Trump dance? That is the Trump dance. Yeah, listen, if Kenner watched the Bengals every single week and knew what we know. And
him not being able to talk, we should use this opportunity to just talk at him and,
we should.
And have no rebuttal. This is kind of fun.
This is very fun.
He just has to sit up there.
He still can't. Man, Nick,
he's trying. He's trying.
I think Casey's doing it.
I'm not doing it.
I think Casey's doing it.
Can you hear me again?
Yeah, you're back through.
Nick Chubb looked fat and slow, huh?
What? ESPN 1410 Wing AM.
We're off the radio.
My mic's off, right? Or is it?
No, it's on now. We hear you now.
Oh, okay. But yeah. But no, that, by the way, my mic's cut out at like the worst times the entire time today. Every time I'm in the middle of a controversial take, it goes out. Probably a sign. That should probably be a sign. Although I do think it's just Casey fucking with me, to be quite honest with you. I think he's just.
That would be pretty funny.
I kind of.
He's just muting you over there all day.
Best prank ever. I mean,
that would be pretty good.
Let's be real.
You just gave me a great idea for next time I'm in that seat. You're not talking about
Kenner, hey, Kenner, we were talking about the first half and how Joe Burrow needed to be better. I got a stat for you. Burrow is the only quarterback since the merger to lose 3 games in a season with 300 passing yards, 3+ passing touchdowns, and 0 interceptions.
He did have like 265 in the second half.
True.
So
I'm just saying.
I don't know what that. Yeah. What does that prove?
That's not a first half stat.
No, it's
a Joe Burrow's great stat.
No, that's a stat that says that no matter what he's doing, whatever you think he's doing in the first half, for the entirety of the football game, Joe Burrow is doing things that nobody's ever done before and still coming away with losses. That's my point. What else can he do?
Ready to play in the first half. Come out ready to play in the first half. And I'm not bashing.
No, you're right. I think for the first time all year last night, there was some real spots where you could have given Joe Burrow some blame. But I still think when we're talking about the big picture of this team, outside of just last night, a lot of people talk about Joe Burrow, and the fact that his name is even brought up in those conversations really gets to me. I saw someone tweet it last night. I thought it was the best explanation of the 2024 Cincinnati Bengals. We're the Angels.
Yeah.
Tungsten Armo Doyle's in Cincinnati now. Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani breaking records every night. It's just Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and the Bengals still lose. It's unbelievable. I asked Reed last night on Chatterbox Bengals, I said, if you pulled up the AI, whatever, ChatGPT, Grok on Twitter, any of those, you put in before the season these stats through 11 weeks. Yeah. Trey Hendrickson, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow. Just their numbers, nothing else into that. Is it spitting out anything worse than 10-1?
No.
Like, no way.
No.
If you said Joe Burrow was the first quarterback to 3,000 yards and he was just burning it down every single Sunday, unanimously everyone would expect the Bengals to be at the top of the NFL. And we're sitting here at 4-7. It's just so frustrating.
You're looking for first half. You're looking for a first half talking point, aren't you? I see your fingers at work over there. Oh no, you pulled it away.
No, I'm good.
No. By the way, you said blame. No blame. I'm not. No, there's no blame on Burrow.
Okay.
But when you every time you say what more can he do, I mean there's always something. You know,
okay.
It's not like it's a bad quarter or a bad couple plays. It was a bad half in general. But no, they're like, look. Joe Burrow's nowhere on that list of reasons why they lost last night. Not even close. Even for a hater like me.
How did Nick Chubb look? How did Nick Chubb look? Did he look fat and slow?
I mean, look, you could bash. Look, the Browns got beat. They got their ass beat by the Saints. You talked about great offensive performance quarterback that lead to a loss. I mean, you had yesterday Jameis Winston throw for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers.
Didn't he have like almost 4?
Yeah, like they balled out yesterday and only put up 14 points.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
and one of them is a 70-yard bomb. Like it wasn't even a sustained drive. Yeah, that's nuts.
So and
Jameis is objectively the most fun to watch out of all these quarterbacks, though, even if it's losing, right?
Yeah.
That means something.
No
that means
DTR.
something. You'd prefer that?
DTR.
Yeah.
I can't believe it, but like, I'll be pissed if they win again. Now that's not true. I'm going to the Browns-Steelers game on Thursday night. Okay.
Oh, very nice.
So I'm going to be pulling for them to beat the Steelers. Okay, I'm sitting front row. I'm praying, and I'm going to be drinking a lot, cheering, hoping to knock off the Steelers on Thursday. But outside of that, I don't want them to win a game the rest of the year. I'm entering Jacob territory here. I'm rooting for losses at this point. Winning 2 or more games the rest of the way does nothing for you at this point. I also don't want them to take a quarterback in this draft. I don't want them to touch a quarterback in this draft.
I think that's
I have no problem with them. I think you bring Jameis back for one more year. You go out there and you got to start filling holes with some of these draft picks, and then you look at quarterbacks in the following year's draft. Or you take a flyer on Quinn Ewers late in the draft or something. I don't know. But do not use a high premium draft pick on a quarterback. Cam Ward, I don't even want them to touch Cam Ward. Where you are? Is there any quarterbacks right now, Jacob? Is Milroe still a guy that you would take a flyer on in the first round, top 10? Because teams will, but is that a guy you'd feel comfortable taking if you're a team in need of a quarterback?
I think there's going to be 5 or 6 first-round quarterbacks. What was that? I think there's going to be 5 or 6 first-round quarterbacks this year, and it's just because of the numbers that these guys are playing and putting up in college. They're pretty good when you look at them big picture. I know they haven't been as good as we wanted them to be this year, especially like the Becks and the Ewers of the world, and even Milroe's had the bad games, but every single quarterback, which I think is something that's unique with this and probably something that's going to be a thing for the entire existence of the 12-team playoff, every single quarterback in the mix for the first round is going to have a chance to play in big-time games here down the stretch.
Yeah.
That everyone's going to be watching. I mean, sure, there's Sanders. They're going to play in the Big 12 championship, it seems like, and then they're going to have a chance to go to the playoff. Cam Ward, we know Miami's going to have a shot. Alabama, Texas, LSU, all still in it. Georgia's still in it. Penn State, a top 5 team. Jackson Dart and Ole Miss, 10-2. Those are the top quarterbacks in the draft. Any one of those guys right now, if you told me any of those teams won a national championship, I wouldn't be completely shocked, which is crazy to say because usually at this point in the season, you're talking about 2 or 3 guys in the draft class that still have a chance to play competitive games, and those guys aren't even always the top quarterbacks on the list. This year, the top 6, 7 guys are going to be playing big-time games down the stretch. I think it's really fun to watch, and I think anyone could play themselves into or out of quarterback 1. As of right now, I think it's pretty distantly Shedeur. I think he's putting up pretty good numbers. I don't think he's a great player or an NFL superstar or anything like that. I fully expect him to be the number 1 pick in the draft just because that's what happens. That's the best quarterback in the draft goes number 1 unless the Jaguars can hold on to it and want to take Travis Hunter. But even if you are the Jags, why wouldn't you trade out? I don't understand the rationale to ever not take a quarterback at number 1. Someone needs one. Someone will give you multiple ones to take one there. You can get better with more picks. I think a quarterback will go 1 in this draft, and I think a lot will go high. None of them are very good, though. I think this draft class is very good.
You can get better with more picks?
Yeah.
That's a thing?
But you have to be able to draft elite players.
Yeah, if your organization's had a history,
I'm joking.
if your organization's had a history of drafting well, then yeah, sure, we can. If you give 400 draft picks to the Bengals, I'm sure they'll hit on 3 of them.
The other thing that's fun is a lot of people, just while we're on the drafting, a lot of people always say the Bengals can't pick well, and the only times they've picked well is when they picked 1 and 5 with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Those guys just fell into their laps. My argument to that is, well, they did well in the mid-rounds of those drafts, too. They had some good picks later, not in the Jamar draft, but in the Joe Burrow draft. You know what else is unique about those 2 drafts? When you pick top 5, you know what you get to help out with in the offseason?
What's that?
The Senior Bowl.
Oh.
So for the team that doesn't have a scouting department, the 2 years they got to go to the Senior Bowl and watch the college football players play, they were able to draft better. Rocket science.
Interesting.
So I did a fun little experiment while you guys were talking.
Oh, jeez.
So I went to
He's a silent assassin. I love it.
I went to ChatGPT because Jacob brought up the idea of if you were to type in the quarterback leads the league in every statistical category, the receiver leads the league in every statistical category, and you have the best edge rusher in the NFL, what would the record be? Ask that question, and this was the response. And this is going to be a little long-winded, so just give me a minute. Offensive impact, quarterback dominance, Leads the league in every possible category. This probably means that they have a high-scoring, dynamic offense capable of moving down the field very quickly and consistently. With a receiver that also leads the league in every possible category as well, this probably makes their passing game virtually unstoppable. Here's the side note, which we'll get into here in a minute. This probably also means that they have strong offensive line play. For a quarterback and receiver to perform at this level, the offensive line must be solid. A good line gives the quarterback time to throw, which further enhances his offensive production. This is what they had to say about the defense. When you have the best edge rusher in the NFL, it can have a massive impact on the game. If the edge rusher is leading the league in sacks and pressures, this could put constant pressure on opposing quarterbacks, disrupting the opposing offense's timing and cause turnovers. This would also lead to suggest that the defense is pretty good, perhaps a top 10 defense. Record prediction. If the team is consistently putting up 30 points in most games and having a pretty dominant pass rusher, we expect the team to probably go anywhere between 12-4, 13-3, 14-3, somewhere in that margin. I then asked it to readjust, and I said the team has the worst offensive line in the league, and the defense gives up the most points in the league. What is the record now? And boy, would you be shocked to hear this answer. Offensive line struggles. Quarterback pressure. With the worst offensive line, the quarterback could be under constant duress. This leads to sacks, forced mistakes, and a bad running game. This impacts the quarterback-receiver duo, where they're having to rely too much on these players to get meaningful yards and leading to terrible mistakes. I'm just kind of paraphrasing because it's very long-winded here. Defense gives up the most points in the game. Even with a dominant edge rusher, the rest of the team is struggling to find meaningful plays, being able to stop the run, and giving up too many tackle or too many yards after catches and runs and things of that nature. It then says the expected record. In worst case scenario, even with a top quarterback, receiver, and edge rusher in the league, it expects the record to be anywhere between 14-13 to 6-11. So we're on pace.
Wait, hold on.
14-6
wins is the range it gave you, brother. That's all of them.
That's all the wins.
No, 14-3 to 6-11.
That's the whole range.
That's
an 8-game range.
The only people that agree with that are meteorologists who are like anywhere between 1 and 9.
Anywhere between 6-11 and 14-3. It's like, yeah.
I'll take that.
I wanted a smaller range than that.
I wanted like an 8.
I said 4-13 to 6-11.
Oh, he said.
We all three heard 14-3.
You said 14-3.
I'm dyslexic, guys. Give me a break. 4-13.
I got you.
6-11.
Do you understand why we were concerned with that range? An 8-game range.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes. No. 4-13. Yeah, we're hitting that nail on the head. Maybe we get 7 wins and really overplay here. really go over expectation. I want to have that. We're going to extrapolate this after the show today because I want to ask him, be like, all right, ChatGPT, now how is the quarterback so good with no time? And what if I tell you that the rest of the wide receivers in the room are terrible and T. Higgins doesn't even play? What now? And the run game's also bad. And Joe Burrow's pressured more than anybody. I don't think it would go down very far.
No, it wouldn't. I was looking at Parker's PFF grades. Not that those really mean anything. But have you seen the defensive grades?
They're fun.
I mean, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. I
they look like my grades in college, I tell you.
Yeah.
Here's the last little bit I forgot to include. It says factors that could improve the record. Elite quarterback-receiver play. If the quarterback-receiver connection is really that elite, they might still be able to steal some games with some late-game heroics, incredible individual performances, or by keeping games close enough to potentially win in shootouts.
Damn, maybe AI's on it. Maybe AI knows ball.
And then the edge rusher's impact. While the defense as a whole is weak, the edge rusher could still create some chaos, forcing turnovers, sacking the opposing quarterback, and possibly changing the course of a few games. But this alone wouldn't be enough to consistently overcome the other team's flaws. ChatGPT just nailing it right on the head.
Jesus.
There's always next year. Maybe.
Well, oh, look at that. Noon, right on the dot. I think I've squeezed as many bad takes as I can into an hour and 55 minutes. So we're done here. Jake said you only hated me for 10 minutes today, right?
Well, you got it up to 12 there in the last segment, but we're good.
Fair enough. What was that was a red segment. What did I say that was wrong about?
No. You dropped it. You dropped the you can draft players with draft picks, and just for about 120 seconds there, it bubbled back up. But it's all right.
It's fair. It's fair. But anyways. All right. Well, we're done until tomorrow. This has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I tried. I told you guys, hey, I'm going to take it easy on you guys today. I'm going to be nice. I don't know how that happened. I don't know what happened.
It all happened so fast.
I tried my best. I really did. I cussed. I never cuss on air, by the way. I think I've in my 10 years doing radio, I've only cussed once, and it was like early on. I lost my cool. My bad.
All good.
It's all right, Justin.
Don't apologize to me. That's always fun.
Box lunch in like 30 or so.
That's right.
25, 30. It'll be soon.
Yep.
We'll get read
and you'll want to tune in.
I
was going to say, I won't be there, so everyone tune in. Okay? Everyone enjoy yourself. Now, until tomorrow, it's been Off the Bench. See ya.
Bye, Justin. Love you.